are live. And 2 weeks ago was the last time we did this. We got through 2009, although I will confess and apologize, I forgot one very important game. So I added it back in, and we can go in and rate the last 2009 game, which was a DSiWare launch title. I have no idea how I forgot this one. What would you give to WarioWare Snapped, a game that doesn't work?
Yeah, my experience with this, or any kind of level of familiarity with it, is limited to James. I think talked about it.
Yeah.
He had this, so
I also
yeah,
had this. So it's
it
20
was
micro games.
right.
It's broken up. They're non-randomized. They're broken up into four sections, each of five. It takes probably about 3 minutes for the DSi to find you, because they're trying to be Connect games.
Right. Yeah.
So
Sure.
to track you where you are, that takes like a couple minutes, and then the micro game lasts about 3 seconds. And 5 of the 20 require a second person be there physically in the same small little range of the 0.3 megapixel front-facing camera on the DSi. So I guess my question to you, and I'm not saying you need to give this a 1, but my question to you as someone who hasn't given a 1 in all of the previous 9 parts.
I think that's maybe we got down to a 2, but
Yes,
yeah, not
I guess my question is: are you of the school of thought that a 1 should be reserved for games that straight up do not function?
I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but I think it might be that is all they do.
Okay.
Like, they just pass that threshold and no other threshold of merit, and then a 0 would be something that doesn't function.
Fair.
I suppose. Yeah.
So then where is WarioWare Snapped?
Yeah, something that sort of, partially functions at best, I guess. It's maybe a 3 for that, just because I mean there must be a little bit of amusing WarioWare like presentation or something in there somewhere to like salvage it from having the very lowest score.
I would say you should try it and find out, but to date there's no way other than spend $5 for it. So
yeah, ideally, to give an informed score, I would.
Yes.
It feels consistent with the sort of sentiment I remember being expressed back then when James played it.
It is maybe not the worst thing that Nintendo has ever put out, but it is soulless, which by WarioWare standards
that's the thing. That is a lot of the appeal of WarioWare is how it can dress things up.
Yes,
it's not
it feels
the
like
pure mechanics or something.
And like that was a showpiece title, so I remember I went in optimistic about its ability to function. When the DSi shop channel launched, and then it was immediately shot down. Well, actually, no. The first thing that happened was I got the DSi, and it asks you to take a photo, like in the setup process, and this is 2009, and the resolution on this thing is so low that I'm like, oh, wait a second. How are these games going to function?
Yeah, if it just looks that low detail, how is it passing anything to help get for the game to work? I mean, it was just I guess it was just a marriage, that was never going to work in terms of those sorts of gameplay ideas with a camera that was of that.
Yeah, look, Kinect had trouble working, and that thing was a $200 camera at launch, or like $150. Yeah. This thing was like a 30-cent camera that they just shoved in there. Alright. Endless Ocean 2 Adventures of the Deep for Wii.
Yeah, I didn't get around to this. I was quite heavily considering getting it because I had the first one and I liked it. So, and I think it was generally regarded as a sort of solid evolution, kind of addition to the formula.
Yep.
But didn't get around to it to have the first-hand experience. So I'm thinking probably somewhere in the region of a 7. I mean, I think we went with a 7 maybe for the first one. So it's a question of
we did.
how much better the game is versus the sort of diminished impact of it being the
Yeah,
second one.
I mean, I feel like it is believable to me that it would even out. Like,
yeah, so yeah, that it's it is better as a game, but it is also the second one in a space of a couple of years, and
yes.
it kind of So I think we'll go with that then.
Sin and Punishment, Successor of the Skies.
As it's called over here, Star Successor in America.
Mm-hmm.
But I reviewed this based on playing the Japanese import. The European and US release was like slightly tweaked, like kind of stuff that would be in a patch. If it was a system that actually had patches,
or on a cartridge revision.
Yes, yeah, I mean, because like Metroid Prime had, even on disc, didn't it? Had like a few like patch type things on subsequent.
Like Melee has a couple different releases.
Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. In terms of like fixing a few little bits of additional slowdown, or a few things that could have been slightly ironed out, but in substance, it's obviously much the same. I reviewed it. I gave it a 9. I think I have played it here and there since. I think it still merits that because it's a very, very good use of the Wii Remote and pointer functionality applied to the Sin and Punishment formula. Kind of makes it feel like it's making it faster and more accessible than the formula was on N64. So worthy of it.
This is a very weird year for Wii. From there, Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if go back to what we said about Endless Ocean 2, if this was the one and only Super Mario Galaxy game, I would give it a 10.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't. It's very much. I think we've covered this with the whole way that Nintendo internally referred to
expansion pack.
Yeah, it's like it is very much Galaxy Plus, Galaxy 1.5, whatever you want to say, and I mean, I feel like it is. To my mind, it's unambiguously better, because almost to a fault, in that it's like, this thing we did in the first one, well, we're going to do it better this time. And so it's just like certain power-ups come back, but they are just like make a bit more sense, or certain concepts come back, but they're just
or certain ones don't.
Some things just get left out that didn't work. But it kind of it's all, I think it's the music is even more wonderful. Like everything, it looks a little bit better. I kind of like. I don't know. I mean, I did like the kind of more overtly spacey themes of the first game, but the kind of the blue skies and bright colors are kind of more prominent in
no hub world, no story. They didn't try on those. They're like, no, this is a level select.
Yeah, so it's not unambiguously better if you like some of those elements in the first game. I guess that's fair. But overall, I think it stays a 9 because even though it is better, it doesn't have the impact of the first Galaxy. Yeah,
I'm also, just personally, I feel like, and this is, I think, my actual biggest feeling about, like, people say that I just don't like Yoshi, and that's not exactly true. I think my thing is that Nintendo has a history of adding Yoshi, but not polishing Yoshi all the way.
And I mean, certainly in Sunshine, it was like adding it without really having any kind of actual plan.
Yes, Sunshine is like the most core example, but like, I don't think that in Yoshi's Island that the like kind of pause and do the reticle aiming is representative of the polish that I would expect from a Nintendo core game design mechanic. Or, like, in Galaxy 2, it's all pointer-based, which is fine, because the Wii pointer works, but then you also have to shake the Wii remote. And so...
It's one of these things. I think it was fine in the dose, but as I recall, it's been a good few years since I played Galaxy 2. Because obviously Galaxy 1 was on the 3D All-Star.
I did actually play this last year.
But so it'd be interesting, actually. It'd be nice if they made it available.
Don't expect it.
Play through it on Switch, but it's how it would hold up. It did strike me as the kind of things it was like okay in the doses it was in, but I don't know whether it would. And that's very Galaxy. That's the whole Galaxy formula, isn't it? It's like everything kind of doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very like, let's do an idea and then we'll basically like move on. We won't do it too many times, kind of thing. So I don't know if it would have held up, but whereas some of the others like Yoshi's Island, obviously it's core to the game.
Yes.
And even like Sunshine, like you do, Yoshi is in quite a lot of the levels. There's like some sort of Yoshi shine in every level. I want to say at least one. Isn't there? Like that involves the Yoshi egg appearing in every world or something, and that was just half baked. Is probably overselling it.
Yes, no. Like, for me, with Yoshi, I feel like the first game where I was able to just immediately and without reservation say this implementation of Yoshi works really well is Woolly World, played with a Wii remote where you can tilt to aim rapidly.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, a pointer could have been good as well if they'd done a game like that. Like, I guess might have been more like Yoshi's Story style aiming, but it would have been much better than Yoshi's Story.
Yes, exactly. But like, also like, Yoshi's Touch and Go and DS didn't even really do the touch implementation as I would have wanted. Like, it's weird.
DS the actual DS, of Yoshi's Island 2 as it was going to be at one point. Like they didn't even try. There was no touch stuff, and then touch and go is it's a kind of because it's a high score game. It's almost more like like a shooter would do touchscreen.
Exactly. It's like in my head, it's like you've had so many different game implementations, or game control technologies that are suited to this. How did it take until Woolly World to get a core Yoshi 2D platformer where you do not have to wait for a reticle to nail the angle before you confirm?
Yeah, it definitely, that was one of the good things about Woolly World. I think that carried over into the 3DS version of Woolly World also.
I believe so. But
it was still pretty good.
Yeah, like to me in Yoshi's Island, that feels like it's almost kind of like a crutch or like a concession based on the technology available to them, and it feels like they're saying like this works, but we could make it really good if we had, let's say, an analog stick. As they just continued, they just were like, no, we got it right the first time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I guess like with Yoshi's Story, they kind of they changed it because you had an analog stick.
Yes.
It was like, okay, well, we could use that, but it was part of a different sort of take on the Yoshi style. So everything is a lot slower paced. And it's like, okay, you still kind of just plant your feet in the ground and stand still while you're aiming. And I guess it's not really out of place in that game because it's a game that's so slow. But if you want to find the melons, you're going to spend a lot of the time just walking around with Yoshi incessantly sniffing. To get the melons. And all. So I guess it's but if you wanted something where it's like more fluid, where you could snap off your accurate shots, that's how long you were going to have to wait.
Yeah, and that's always to me.
In this era, I remember being on RFN thinking like, oh, Yoshi and the Wii remote pointer, like this is. It's so funny. There was like a couple of things I used to talk about in these days of like, oh, wouldn't it be great because the Wii remote would make them better than they used to be, even though I love those games already.
Yeah.
Was Yoshi and Sin and Punishment, and out of the two, it's Sin and Punishment that happens. What are the odds?
It sure the hell is. I don't understand. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed these 2 9s because now we're about to get into some weird ones. Poke Park Wii Pikachu's Adventure.
Didn't play this.
I would be shocked if you had. This game was literally aimed at 5-year-olds.
It did. But I mean, I like cute stuff, so it wouldn't have been out. If it was one of those things I'd seen it weirdly cheap, I might have gone for it. But of course, it would have been weird because Pokemon...
It is on the Wii U eShop.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it probably would have been more like when it was more current. Like if it had been cheap and it was current, I might have said, "Oh, I could talk about it on the show." Or so it could have happened. Not likely to happen because again, why is a Pokemon game going to be that cheap? That's
Never.
So it's just not likely, even if it's a spin-off. But I do remember hearing like some again, I'm sure it's not the deepest thing in the world or all that, but some positive kind of reactions to it at the time.
Yes.
So I'm kind of probably leaning towards a 6 on this, but maybe there's arguments either side of that, but that's probably where I'll end up on it.
Okay. Here we go. Metroid Other M.
Tough one to rate for me because it's such a cocktail of disparate things I really quite like and things I really don't. So there's certain, like, obviously we've got the storytelling, the dialogue is very poor. The pixel hunts are just, I mean, they add nothing of value, and sometimes really kind of actively detract from.
Sure do.
Obviously, they're a relatively small kind of element in the overall game, but still, it just I get it as kind of like an homage to Sakamoto's past, but it don't work.
No.
The first person aiming stuff I'm sort of mixed on. I kind of feel like there's some of that is kind of interesting, and it really I got to a place where I was kind of comfortable with it, where it was like, okay, basically when it does the bullet time thing when you first initiate firing a missile in first person, it's like, okay, that is basically it. Like, everything slows down, you make your shot, and then after that, whether you missed or you hit, come out, because once you let it sort of run at full speed in that mode and all, it just, it kind of
because it's 2D Metroid speeds in first person.
Yeah, exactly. It's not calibrated the way a Prime game would be for all that kind of stuff. So it's just like you set up for that shot, you either hit it or you don't, but then move on. Don't stay in it. And that point I got more comfortable with it, and it kind of felt it kind of worked, but not altogether. And then other elements, the mobility of the character, the melee stuff, so the boss battles, like some of that I felt were quite good. So it's tough to balance all these things, but overall I would probably lean more towards like the 6.5, like getting towards a 7, but it's probably going to be a 6 as well, mate. So I could make an argument for a 7, but I'll go with it.
What about the scene where Samus is being set on fire and begging to be able to turn on her fire-resistant suit?
There's so many bizarre bits in it, like, just, to me, like, obviously the bit where she sort of, kind of traumatically responds to the presence of Ridley when it grows up. Like, it's like, I feel like it's like someone, presumably Sakamoto, had it in his mind like this scene would have happened at some point in the Metroid timeline, but not now. Not when she's killed it 5 fucking times.
Yes. Like, I mean? That feels like that is a 0 mission or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Scene. But they're like, no, I want to do this scene, even though it makes no fucking sense.
Or Prime, story,
I'm going to do it. There's so many things like that.
Yeah.
It's just like this. You like the idea of this, or you like this idea.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong here.
Or
just shoehorned it in.
My favorite, which is I ended up weirdly stuck on the final boss for like 5 minutes because the at the very, very, very beginning of the game, they have you run through all of your abilities, including like the big Mega Bomb ability, and then they restrict all of those abilities, of course. And then they never give you that one back. You're just supposed to know that you have it back.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's power bomb.
Yes, it's like, I'm sorry, the fuck?
They did show this once, and I am at the end of the game.
Yes, they showed it off like 20 hours and like 2 weeks ago. Maybe I could use this. What were the controls again? Because of course it's all one Wii remote. So it's like, hold A. Okay. What a stupid, and look, I know ending a game is very hard. But come on.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's just like the final, there's meant to be some sort of significance about the final act of, kind of overcoming the game is like disobedience or something.
I don't know. Anyways, on to a very different game, Wii Party.
Yeah, didn't play this one. Sort of seemingly kind of somewhat mixed kind of reaction. I seem to remember.
I mean, the people who played it expecting what it was, really liked it. The people who played it expecting a Mario Party game were upset because there was only one board, because it was not meant to be a board game. It was meant to be one of the things is like a word association game where you physically pass a Wii remote around, and another game is like literally go hide all the connected Wii remotes in your room, and then we're gonna play a chirp out of their speakers every 10 seconds, and someone who wasn't there has to come find them. It's like just weird shit you can do in the real world was like the pitch, and a lot of people bought it because they were like, well, it's a Mario Party game, it just doesn't have Mario in it, wait, what is this? And then there were hardcore gamers that were just mad because it's a party game.
Oh sure, yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, it just, yeah, maybe in some ways the branding maybe didn't do it any favors in that regard.
Yeah.
In terms of, like having it the party sort of.
It is honest, but it is also, yeah.
It implies more about how similar it is to Mario Party, fairly or unfairly, than perhaps the product ended up being. I would kind of lean towards the non-committal 6 on this again.
Yeah, that's
not
fair.
Been able to play it myself.
Fling Smash.
Yeah, I didn't play this one. I mean, it was so this was like a pack-in with Motion Plus or something.
So I mean, it was not advertised as one. That was a very last-minute decision. Of fuck. We have the final game and we don't like it.
How do you salvage this?
Yes. And so, yes, it is a Motion Plus required game. And of course, Motion Plus comes out in 2009. Does not set the world on fire. They do not expect that they want to make sure that you have every player needs it's a 2-player local game. And both players, if 2 players were to play it, would each need a Motion Plus. So they did pack a Motion Plus in. It's a fucking breakout game where the angle of your shot is dictated by the angle of your tennis swing. That's it.
Right, and this is Artoon, right? I think it was before they became Art Zest or whatever.
I think this is the last game before Art Zest, if I recall.
Yeah, it sounds about right, because I think it was somewhere early in that decade where we found out that they kind of, whatever happened there, when they announced like Yoshi's New Island, I think was.
Oh god, yeah, and that would have been 2012.
Yeah, so it would make sense they would be somewhere around it, but it's not meant to be great, so maybe a 3 for that one.
Yeah, it feels like the buy this game to get a controller plus a cheap game fad really should have died around Link's crossbow training. But here we are.
Yeah, quite late in the system.
Alright, ROM on a disc with an untranslated art reference and a soundtrack that includes coin sound effect.
Yeah, it's like the first level theme pretty much from
4 or 5 different games. Yes.
Yeah, and then some sound effects. Pretty weak source. Obviously, the game itself, All Stars. There's things to like there. You collected together some very good games. I guess there's some question marks about like what happens to the physics in the first, the original Mario.
What did you give the original release of All Stars?
It could have been probably somewhere in the region of an 8. I would guess.
You gave it a 7.
7 or an 8.
So this was in 1993. You gave it a 7. What does it same product get 17 years later for $50?
And also demerits for just the way it's the presentation or anything again just because it was basically just like playing it as a virtual console game.
Oh, 100%.
It's not like you got save states like you. Did you like the suspend feature?
They didn't even change.
Did you not even get that?
No, you didn't get that, and you also didn't even get so that's a negative feature removed. But then you also it doesn't even show you button mappings. Because you can play the Super Nintendo game with a Wii remote, and it does, the button mappings are theoretically obvious, but in-game, and of course, it's just the ROM, it just shows the fucking Super Nintendo controller.
Yeah, that's all it controls.
And so, literally, I looked this up back at the time. If you were to, I don't know, download an ISO of this, that ISO would be about 40 megabytes. And it was printed onto a 4.7 gigabyte disc.
Yes, yeah, and like, so even if it was mostly going to be about the packaging and
but the packaging was bad.
It wasn't particularly good in that regard either. So I think I'm not going to go lower than a 3 because there is a fun game in there somewhere, but I'm not going to go higher than a 3 either. I think we'll go with that.
Happy anniversary. Like, what the fuck are you doing, Nintendo? Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah, I like this. Retro doing DKC. I feel like kind of. I feel like it delivered on DKC sort of style gameplay better than the original games did. I mean, they had more to work with in terms of like. I said the original DKC games always felt a little bit cramped to me because you have these sort of big, impressive, computer-modeled, pre-rendered sprites, but then in the Super Nintendo resolution and sort of the kind of pace of the gameplay, you don't necessarily have that much time to react, and so they kind of used a crutch to some extent of like really quite heavily with the bananas, like essentially telling you when to jump or what to do, which worked to some extent. But with the the aspect ratio change, with the fact that it's fully polygonal, you've got dynamic camera, all this kind of stuff, they just could go. They've got much more flexibility, to be fair, and then to take that formula and expand on it and just kind of polish it up. And I thought they did a pretty good job, so I'll go with an 8 on that.
Okay. I wish that anything Donkey Kong could tone down the racism, please.
Well, this was, I think, quite. It's been a while since I played the first one, but isn't it quite a bit worse than Tropical Freeze?
Yeah, yes. Tropical Freeze is not clean, but it backs the hell off of the Tiki Tak tribe.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was never that big on the Kremlings.
Yes.
Myself, or the rare stuff, but either. But yeah, I didn't really think they delivered in that. I think definitely we'll get to Tropical Freeze one day.
Oh, we will.
I promise. But that is. I think the Snowmads and stuff. I thought they were like the best designed like villain cast for a DKC game.
Definitely.
Even though not the most important thing certainly to me in like the gameplay, but it still was nice. I thought. But these, it's like I kind of like the fact they're not the Kremlings, but they're not particularly interesting to look at, and then you've got the sort of connotations are not good. So I didn't really
All right, on to the 3 games that they published that are not theirs. Naruto Shippuden Clash of Ninja Revolution 3.
Yeah, so again, not in the loop.
They keep bringing out Naruto games. Greg, why don't you know about Naruto games?
I don't know about Naruto, so I continue to be at a disadvantage. I mean, I forget, where did we leave off with the last one, I guess is the real question.
The last one would have been, GameCube, I think? I don't think they put one out on Wii before this. Clash of Ninja 2, you gave it a 7.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that was based on how it was received. What is the Metascore for Naruto Shippuden Clash of Ninja Revolution 3?
I like the way that the Revolution kind of is in the title there.
Yes. Okay. Clash of... It has a 74 on Metacritic. Did NWR review it?
It's sounding like it's going to be good value for a 7 again. That was kind of what I was thinking coming into it.
NWR did not write a review of this.
Oh, well, that's a shame. But,
it's true.
I think the non-committal 7 in this case is where
Fair.
we go.
All of the entire screen layout on Metacritic just wants me to know that critics did not especially like the first episode of Book of Boba Fett. So thank you,
It's
Metacritic.
the important things in life.
Yes. I'm busy trying to look up my Naruto game reviews from 2010.
That's like, yeah, that's the thing is I'm much more. I guess that's the thing is I'm much more interested in stuff like that, arcane things from the past, than like this thing that just came out. Like, but that's presumably is not how most of Metacritic's traffic.
No, that is no. Metacritic wants you to know that critics saw the exact same episode that you can go see, and this was their thought of 1/7 of a TV show.
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like I've mentioned this in RFN at some point. I'm not big on the reviewing TV shows as they go.
Yeah, no, it's like great. Especially this one episode was like great. You reviewed the setup episode, but Metacritic is going to count that as the review for the entire show.
Yeah, that's the. Yeah, I mean, I've never been entirely clear on how they.
Yeah, no, for TV shows, it's they will. If your outlet runs a review for the entire show, I believe it will get an update. But if you do not, and if you review all the episodes piecemeal, episode 1 is the one that counts. Which is fucking stupid.
That's pretty interesting.
So,
I won't be paying more attention to Metacritic TV scores. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, no, it's very useful information, Greg. It's very important to know that people thought that the setup episode of Book of Boba Fett was just too much setup. No payoff in that first episode. Anyways, Monster Hunter Tri.
Yeah, I had this. This was my introduction to Monster Hunter, and it didn't quite land all the way. But I think, some of it was I just didn't really have the opportunity to put the time in properly, to kind of fully get into it, because it was, it's just getting harder to put that much time into individual games on dedicated TV games at this point. There's another one that we will get to that was probably like the last game I can remember just spending an enormous amount of time in front of the television with later on. But with Tri, I still got over, I think between 20 and 30 hours. And, I kind of liked it enough. I felt like this is something, I'm going to come back to at some point. But I never actually came back to that particular game. It was, when it was on 3DS. But, I think... I'm not sure how people felt about the underwater stuff, because that was like the addition to the game.
Yes,
right?
It was
from previous. And I don't know whether I really got deep enough into the game to like really kind of get a feel for that.
So the Western take was it's less good than the on land stuff, and the Japanese audience reaction was, "Oh, good, something new."
Sure, yeah, because it's more sort of
familiar,
traveled.
Yes,
in Japan at that point. So I think I'll go with an 8 for this.
What about Samurai Warriors 3?
Yeah. So I can somewhat remember, this being discussed, but not necessarily the real substance of how sort of good it was for a game in this vein. So yeah, any guidance on this one?
It felt like it got received the same way that Warriors games of this era were received, which for better or worse, it feels like Hyrule Warriors forced critics to sit down and actually take these games on their own merits, and before then, if your outlet didn't have a Warriors guy, they got force.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, well, it's just kind of dumb and repetitive, and, there's not really any substance to it. And obviously it's not like, it's somewhat understandable, people could view it that way, I guess. But there's, when you do play, I played quite a lot of the 2 Hyrule Warriors games, and especially Fire Emblem Warriors.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I guess Fire Emblem Warriors maybe it adds a bit more kind of...
I love Fire Emblem Warriors, yes.
So that's got the most kind of interesting wrinkles of a Warriors game I've played. But I guess this might not have all of those, but it still probably had more than people were giving credit at the time for it.
Exactly.
But it's tough. I'll go with the 7 maybe on that.
Okay.
It's tough, but I feel like that's probably the fairest score I can give it.
All right, 8 WiiWare games in 1 year. We can get through these. We're already backing the hell away from WiiWare.
Yeah.
After all, we've got a whole new platform to flood. It's called DSiWare. Ecoshooter Plant 530 from Intelligent Systems.
Wow, I have no memory of this.
It is a 3-level first-person shooter about shooting trash.
Yep,
that do not move. It's a shooting.
Is it called anything else anywhere else in the world?
No.
I really don't. It's so strange. I'm looking at the other names and they all ring some sort of bell, but this is just nothing. I can't.
Ecoshooter Plant 530 truly came and went. What does it have on Metacritic? I remember people being like, "Oh, an Intelligent Systems shooter," and then playing it and being like, "Oh, it's a WiiWare game." Yeah, it's a 56 on Metacritic. So this is also a year late in Europe, or maybe it's a couple months. No, it's just a couple months because it's December 2009 in the rest of the world. NWR did not review it.
That probably, if they had, I mean, it certainly would have significantly increased the probability that it would, at least the name would have some sort of recognition.
IGN gave it a 7, saying ultimately a decent design, just not really all that impressive in the end. Spending $10 for just 3 levels of blasting away at old garbage, even alien animated sentient garbage, feels like an uneven investment. Nintendo Life gave it a 7. Players might be put off by the short length and lack of multiplayer, which means it probably won't get as much playtime after the first run-through by anyone but high-score junkies. But if you're a fan of the genre, it's worth a look. Eurogamer gave it a 5, saying, on a console that's hardly lacking in excellent on-rail shooters, Darkside Chronicles and the soon-to-be-released Sin and Punishment 2 among them, and interestingly, lovely-looking downloadable games, 530 Ecoshooter has no place.
Well, I think it's, again, obviously it's very difficult to feel like you could say anything of worth about something you didn't even know existed until just now. But I think it's just going from some of those reviews and whatnot. Probably I'll go towards the 5.
Okay,
we'll go with 5.
It was. I apologize. In Europe, it was just called 530 Ecoshooter.
Right, as opposed to Plant.
Yes, so this is, I'm looking up relative release dates real quick, and then I'm going to need you to repeat the score, because I did miss that, but, so, 5.
Definitely 5. I mean, to me, some of those, the comments, and obviously they are just excerpts, but the comments on the reviews giving it 7 sound like a 5 to me.
Yes, it's true. Okay, so in all regions, except for Japan, it came out before the region's release of Sin and Punishment 2. But in Japan, it went Sin and Punishment 2 and then this. Which feels even better somehow.
Yeah, it was a pretty big gap, because it was I think it was maybe like 9 months, I think, between Sin and Punishment in Japan and the West.
Yes, it came out at the very beginning of 2010 in Europe, and then Sin and Punishment 2 was summer.
Yeah.
Okay, Excite Bike World Challenge.
Yeah, I didn't get around to this, but I heard decent things about it. So it was kind of a more...
It had online level sharing while Wi-Fi connection lasted.
Yeah, which would be... well, not that many more years, really.
Like 2013 or something?
Yeah, it's in retrospect, it's like not that long. So maybe 7 for that.
Yeah.
It's a shame I didn't get to it.
I mean, you can... No, I mean, if you happen to have a ROM of it, one might be able to play it, but yes, you can no longer buy any of these games.
Yeah.
WarioWare Do-It-Yourself Showcase, which did come with its own games, on top of being able to download DS players games, on top of being able to transmit your DS games from your DS to the Wii.
Yeah.
And it was like 800 points?
Yeah, I really like the idea here. I really like the fact that this was one of the stronger capitalizations on Wii DS connectivity,
Yes.
because it's funny. I mean, not that it wasn't a Wii DS connectivity, but it's just so odd in a way that when they would. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why, but GameCube and GBA, they were sort of tried so hard, and then with Wii and DS, it's like, well, people do have the systems because they're far more popular. You don't need cables anymore.
It's true.
But they just didn't give a shit because it's like, well, no, we don't need
only Pokemon.
We don't need to make GameCube popular by rubbing it next to the GBA and getting that sort of halo effect anymore. Because they're both popular, so fuck it. We don't care.
Yeah.
But this was actually a case of it using it pretty well. So I'm inclined to give this an 8. I think it's kind of generous in some way. Give 7 or 8, but I'll give it an 8.
Back to WiiWare art style for 2 last centuries. Pentatentacles, which is original.
Yeah, this is a new one. I did play it and I quite liked it.
Yes.
I think a 7.
Okay. And Light Tracks, which is based on the GBA game.
Yeah, so I played the GBA original of this and quite liked it. The perspective was kind of more fancy and
yes,
rather than just being like lines.
I think it had 2-player.
Oh, did it?
I think it did.
Yeah, so I think 7 is probably appropriate there, based on kind of, I liked the GBA game a fair bit, and the sound was good.
Yes.
And I can only assume this sort of polished it up a bit.
Definitely. This next one is maybe my favorite WiiWare game because it is so rare to see Nintendo just so nakedly grabbing for money. But after seeing My Aquarium and My Aquarium 2 at the number 1 or number 2 positions on the WiiWare sales charts for like 2 years, here we go. Let's commission someone to make Zenquaria Virtual Aquarium, as it's known in Europe.
That should be us.
Yeah, why aren't we making aquarium money? We're only making 30% of aquarium money.
I must confess, this again is not anything that's really in my head. I always just assumed those aquarium things had nothing to do with Nintendo.
No, they made.
I guess once this one came out, it just disappeared. In my head among the others.
What was this called elsewhere? It was also called Aquaspace in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just like sort of like a relaxing visualizer type thing.
Yes, can I read you Nintendo Life's 6 out of 10 review for this? This is probably still WiiWare World at this point, but
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes.
Fine.
All right. If you are in the market for a bucolic, aquatic, and mostly decorative program such as this, Zenquaria isn't the worst choice you could make. Having but one mediocre feature over Hudson's offering, and costing 100 more points, it all really comes down to whether you'd rather pay more for that little bonus and support Nintendo, or just get the cheaper deal.
Support Nintendo.
Give Nintendo more money or not was the decision here.
Wow, that's an interesting rubric.
They gave it a 6.
You can finally feel like you're Atlas and keeping Nintendo, not the company Atlas, the figure.
Yes.
Atlas, with the world on his back, but it's Nintendo. I think I'll give it a 5. Maybe it deserves less. But, I do like like you. I do love how just like we are getting in on that.
It's just so rare to see them so nakedly grubbing for money.
No, it's just like, why did we think of this? But we're thinking of it now. Screw it.
Through Space, which in Europe has this subtitle, High Velocity 3D Puzzle.
Yeah, you have to have that sort of literal descriptive element that some of these things had with their penchant for.
I really wonder if a lot of these are so that they can keep the proper noun in all of the different European languages and translate the subtitle.
Yeah, you would have thought so. There's got to be some sort of utility to that kind of thing. I think I feel like this showed up on 3DS at some point, or a descendant of it. And
we'll get there. Ketzel's Corridors.
Yes, that's it. So that's where I know it from, and it seemed all right in that. I guess the 3D functionality makes a certain amount of things there. It's just called like hole in the wall or something. Like it fundamentally, obviously not the firmest grasp on the substance of this, but I'll go with a 6.
Okay. Hydroventure.
Yeah, I think I did get around to play this eventually. It was got fluidity.
Fluidity.
How I know it, because I can remember like Johnny talking about it as fluidity.
My favorite, I think my favorite PR package I've ever received from Nintendo, which was literally a bottle of water with the label ripped off and a Wii Points code. And it's just like, use these 2,000 points to buy Fluidity, please. Because we don't have review codes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it got there was a sequel on 3DS that was sort of a little bit different, kind of broke things up a bit, I think.
Yeah, people prefer the WiiWare game to the 3DS game.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. But I remember there being sort of positive things. I did get to it eventually. I think was it when we did look back on some WiiWare games when the service was ending or something like that?
I don't think so, because that was primarily like Bonsai Barber and Yumi and the Cubes.
Yeah, I just don't know whether it was maybe because I hadn't played that game before.
Oh, maybe.
It's just like, the service is ending, I should buy that and actually check it out. Like, it wasn't like, so it coincided with that, but it wasn't actually part of the on-air stuff. But I think 7 probably for this.
On to DS retail. Picross 3D.
Oh, I like this one. Yeah, I like 3D Picross quite a lot. There's just something very satisfying about chiseling away the sort of component blocks to reveal the cute little animations to kind of sell the idea that this formation of blocks is what it says it is and all that. So an 8 for that.
Okay. Let's go with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Yeah, I like this a lot. It was my second Pokemon game, and I really liked it. It's just whether it's an 8 or a 9, really, I think, with this one.
Very, very good games.
I think we'll go with the 9.
Yep. WarioWare Do It Yourself, the DS game.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I'm not terribly creative, so I guess this was always probably going to be something. I considered it at various points, but yeah, in the end, I guess I never made the leap to it because I just don't really have the talent, the aptitude.
You didn't want to go download other people's creations?
Yeah, that was an option, I guess, but it just I don't know. You feel like you want to do so. It's a kind of with the original Mario Maker. I did make quite a lot of levels, even though I was shit at it. But I felt better about playing other people's levels, having tried,
Yes.
There's some sort of reciprocity happening, whereas like with the second one, I really didn't do any level making, and it does, I don't know, on some psychological level, it does make you less like enthusiastic about participating in playing everybody else's stuff on that basis. Yeah, it could have happened. It just didn't. It just passed me by a little bit. But from what I understand, it's a pretty sort of robust and quite well sort of crafted creation suite. You've got as well, like with like music and sound effects and also, there's all sorts of elements to it. It sounds quite demanding in a way, but I guess you are making micro games, so
it is the logic design of the gameplay is pretty much going to be demanding, period. But the components, like the art, the music, those components, you can make them yourself, or you can sub in things like creations or other people's creations. You can pull down and include them in yours.
It was propagate.
Yes.
I think we'll go with an 8 on this one.
Okay. That was one of my favorite. Like, I really, really like that. I think that, like now, if you're thinking about like game creation games, like the two that obviously will come to a lot of people's minds are Dreams on PlayStation and Roblox. I really do think that like WarioWare Do It Yourself, there's something to be said for it made it approachable in a way that feels very Nintendo, even for something that complex.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing to do. I can only imagine what sort of how tough it must be, because it's a question of perspective for developers. Like having to like try and like almost empty your head of all the things that you've come to know through your craft. And think about it from
almost assuredly tested to hell and back for years.
Yeah, have you done a lot with the Game Builder Garage?
Game Builder Garage less so. And honestly, that was because I was messing around with Dreams a lot at the time, and for like a work thing, or not a work thing. I'm going to try and talk vague just for a few seconds. There was an event that challenged game developers to learn Dreams and make something in Dreams.
Okay.
That was like a private PlayStation held thing, and so I was focused on that, and I didn't want to mess with Game Builder Garage because I thought that would fuck me up.
Across the streams.
Yes.
That makes sense, but yeah, there's a part of me that's sort of interested in that, and then there's another part that's like, you are not going to do anything interesting with that. Just don't even go there.
Yes. What about Jam with the Band?
Oh, infamous. Sort of commercial plot, like just real, whatever the gaming equivalent of box office poison. It's like,
look, you want to A, kill your franchise's hopes of leaving Japan ever again, but B, make Nintendo of America feel justified because Americans can buy the European version for like $5.
Yeah. It was mixed, wasn't it? In terms of like the things that did come to Europe that didn't in America. Like some of them did bomb, and then others of them got pressure campaign to coming to America after all. So yeah, it's. I did have it because first of all, quite sort of interesting. I remember it being covered.
Daigasso Band Brazza P.
Yeah, all the way back, like because there were a few different versions.
Yes, not P, DX. P was 3DS.
3DS, yeah, but there was like, I think, in Japan it was quite an early game, at least.
Yes, there was Daigasso Band Brothers, and then DX, and this was the DX release.
Localized, yeah.
Yes.
So it'd been reading about it for a long time, and then it dropped in price really suddenly. So I thought, oh well, I'll definitely get it now. And then it like dropped in price much further.
Yes.
I quite liked it, even though obviously it's like, the music itself is a lot of kind of just standard kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not that interesting.
Did it come with the Wii channel in Europe, or was that Japan exclusive?
I don't remember that very well.
Because I think it was Japan exclusive. So in Japan, you buy a physical copy and it would come with a code that if you put it into the Wii Shop channel, you got a Wii channel that would connect with Jam with the Band, that version on DS, and it would play higher fidelity instruments and like better audio versions of the music.
That's interesting, yeah, because it was the actual the instrument quality and all that kind of stuff was not the highest. I mean, it was passable. But I quite like the game. I think it's between a 6 and a 7. I think I'll go with the 7.
Okay. Here's a European only one. 1,000 cooking recipes from Ella Table.
Ella Table.
We got a different version of this that was like America's Test Kitchen. Let's get cooking.
Okay, yeah. So we've got this sort of thing.
So this is a sequel to Personal Trainer Cooking,
yeah.
But it got different titles and different recipes in all 3 major regions. So it's not the same game, but every single region got its own sequel to Personal Trainer Cooking with that exact tech.
Yeah, I think this guy, I'll go with a 5 on that.
Okay.
It's a bit committal, but
Look, here we go with some really good names. Art Academy. Learn paint lowercase painting and drawing techniques with step-by-step training. So this is first semester and second semester. You have not yet rated second semester. We'll get there on DSiWare. First semester, you gave a 7.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to stick with a 7 for this. Again, it's tough because I didn't use them, and I don't know that any software, however clever, could teach me how to draw terribly well.
The pro is that you don't need a DSi to play these versions. I believe. I think it nixes like take a picture and do a camera traceover function.
Right.
Last Window, The Secret of Cape West.
Yeah, so this is the Hotel Dusk sequel.
Yeah.
I didn't get around to this even.
Never came out in America.
This did not escape any further than Europe, and I guess some of it there was a little bit of like, well, I should play Hotel Dusk first.
Yes.
And I hadn't got around to that, and then it didn't happen. But I would imagine. Do you have any guidance to offer on this in terms of sort of relative to the first game?
People think it is of the same quality as Hotel Dusk. In the United States, it is talked about much more reverently because it's the thing you couldn't get.
Yeah, sure.
You gave Hotel Dusk a 7.
Yeah, I think we'll probably go with the 7 again.
Okay.
For that, it seems like this. It'd be nice to have a more informed, precise opinion.
Yes.
So we don't.
And remember, if you're keeping score in chat and you're seeing a lot of 7s, 8s, and 9s, don't worry, we haven't gotten to the second half yet. All right. Speaking of DSi, the one and only anywhere in the world DSi retail exclusive published by Nintendo. A retail game that could only work on DSi, but was too hot for DSi, where they wanted more money for it. Face training, facial exercises to strengthen and relax from Fumiko Inudo.
Yeah, so was there a face training game pre-DSi in
Yes,
Japan?
and in Europe it shipped with basically a webcam for your DS.
That's right. Yeah. So, but now it's like, it's built in now.
Yes. So now it can come out. Sorry, the other one I don't think came out in Europe. This is basically the same game, but works on DSi. Does not require the add-on. Here you go, Europe. Face training.
There's a website, a retailer website over here that doesn't really sell many video games anymore. Yeah. They still sell face training. Like they still
you should buy
have copies of this game in stock, presumably from 10+ years ago.
You should
got rid of them.
You should talk about it on New Business and don't tell anyone that it's coming.
Yeah, well, I guess, if I wanted to crack the camera of a DSi, that's what I would do. The merits of this seem very dubious to me.
It's really just, like, pull different faces. And, like, all right, we are sensing with our 0.3 megapixels that your camera is either dusty or you have wrinkle, you're creasing your eyebrows. So you should try to fix whichever one of those it is.
I'm gonna go with a 4.
Okay.
It's. I mean.
You should really buy it. That would be really funny. Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs.
Yeah. So we are now going beyond the Pokemon Ranger. So I reviewed the second Pokemon Ranger,
yes,
which we've already covered. This is going beyond that. I've given the other ones a 6. I'm just going to presume that that's probably the safest thing to go with this. I don't recall hearing anything.
It's not better, it's not worse, but it is the third.
Yeah, so you could make an argument maybe for going down to a 5 at this point, but I'll go with the 6.
Okay. Golden Sun Dark Dawn, because they were cowards and didn't do DS as the subtitle? What are they doing?
Yeah, come up with dark something else.
Dark Sunfall.
Yeah, at some point it was probably Dark Sun something.
Yes,
Like, no, you
but you
can't have
can't put
Dark
sun
Sun.
in if it's golden sun.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's like, well, they did go Star Wars Clone Wars. I mean, that did happen, so it's
Yes, but
possible. But
but the problem there is that people liked Star Wars Clone Wars and people did not necessarily like Dark Dawn.
no, that's true. I never got the. I had not played the other two
Yes.
on or even one of the other two on GBA, so it wasn't something that I was eagerly anticipating. But equally, having sort of remembered the number of people who did like those games on GBA and were excited that there was a new one coming, it wasn't out of the question that if it had been received in a particular way, that I could have sort of. Looked at it and thought, yeah, I'll get in on it. But yeah, it didn't seem like people who enjoyed the previous games were terribly enthused.
No,
James, I think, did play it,
he
and
didn't.
having played
Yeah.
Golden Sun on GBA and didn't seem all that into it. So
It's kind of a very, very average JRPG on a system that is not short on
oh yeah,
incredible JRPGs. I think this is the same year that the Chrono Trigger remaster came out.
yeah. I mean, I think
And we'll get to the next one.
yeah, I think it's tough. I feel like it's maybe 5 is a little bit harsh, but I'm kind of leaning towards a 5. Like
That's fair.
it's either a 5 or a 6, but maybe we'll go with 5.
Alright, two more DS games, and then it's all DSiWare from game 33 to game 67. Uh, Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Skies.
Yeah, so Nintendo bringing this over as they've done, a fair few times, I suppose, in the past with Dragon Quest games. But yeah, I didn't. I had a friend who had a copy, and I think he did lend it to me, like a bit after the game had come out, and so it
It's
wasn't.
like 120-hour long game.
Yeah, I never really delved deep into it because it just kind of felt like by the time I had access, it was like, I was on RFN at the time, and it just kind of felt like it was a bit old hat, like it had been talked about a lot on the show, and equally, it was just going to take me a hell of a long time to even really like scratch the surface of it. Such an extensive game, but everything I ever heard from Johnny playing it, various other people over the years, it just suggests it was a really good marriage between
Yes.
the system and Dragon Quest and what they
And it
did
introduced Street Pass.
yeah, it's essentially Proto Street Pass and actually got Nintendo to kind of go with that. I think a 9 seems appropriate.
Yeah.
It just seems like you can't really get away from that.
What about Professor Layton and the Lost Future?
Yeah, this is my favourite Leighton game that I've played. I like it quite a lot. It's kind of it ramps up the absurdity in a way that works for me, and I can't it's difficult to exactly say when it comes to absurdity why some kinds of it do work for you and some kinds don't. But it did for me, and just the puzzle quality and all that kind of stuff, the artwork, the premise, it all just worked together. So I'd go with a 9 on that as well.
Okay. I'm gonna take a 1-minute water bottle refill break before we get into DSiWare. Feel free to take the
take some sort of break.
Yes.
Steal myself.
Yes. Feel free to stretch your legs. And make sure you open a Google tab.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Alright, you ready?
Good to go.
Okay, Art Academy second semester. Are we just gonna start with a 7 here?
I think, that's going to be the appropriate response.
Okay. Electroplankton time. So,
Ah.
in 2000 and... was it 4? No, 6 in Europe. Really? Yeah. You give it a 5 total.
Yeah.
They released Electroplankton, which was a bunch of weird little musical tech demos that really didn't interact much with one another. So, Nintendo decided we're going to rip out every single one and sell them individually, which means that this is about to tank our average.
Yeah, I guess so.
What about BeatNES or BeatNES?
Yeah, this stuff, I mean, it's, I mean, I guess it's a question of, when they were together.
Yes.
Did it actually add anything?
No.
Did they complement each other? Did they,
Not really.
It doesn't sound like they did. But then the other component of it is the value proposition for the. So how many points?
200 each.
So 200 each.
So it would cost 2,000 to get the full set, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess it's and what was the entire package back in the day?
Hard to say for Europe. It was like 25.
So you see, it's pretty similar, I suppose. But
yes, but the problem is that some of these experiences are also better than others, which is why you should look up what they are.
Yeah, well, let's get underway with the BeatNES or whatever. So, I think maybe we'll go with a 4 on this one.
Okay. What about Hannenbau based on Brawl? Or not Brawl based on, not literally.
Oh, yeah, but in terms of that this is something where it's you actually I actually have a little bit of kind of
yes,
exposure to it, at least with the sort of that particular stage, which is one that's actually managed to hang around, because not all the stages have hung around.
Yes,
but that one has. So I think maybe we'll give that a 5.
Okay. Nanocarp.
Oh, Nanocarp. All right, here we go. Careful not to misspell.
Yep.
Let's see. Maybe we'll go with another 5.
Okay. Trappy?
Trappy.
Also, if you're just joining us, we are at game number 37 out of 67 for 2010's Nintendo of Europe releases.
Yeah, it is not going to be too easy. Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It's like when it's 1p. Like I feel like I'm not fully equipped there with how to pronounce it.
Exactly. It's either Trapey or Trappy.
Yeah. I think apparently this is according to the Nintendo Life review, it says it's the most one-dimensional of the so it's must be bloody one-dimensional, I thought. So maybe we'll go with a 3 on that one.
Okay. Luminaro.
Like,
some of them are really obvious, like, how you get there. Like, okay, it's an illuminated arrow that is this, like, sea creature. So, Luminaro. Or, like, you're making beats with NES noises. BeatNES.
yeah.
Like, Rec is about recording and playback. VAR Voice is about creating, like, voice modulation. But then what the hell is
Yeah, that one is harder to say. It seems like apparently Luminaro is, one of the brighter lights. According to
so 5.
So we'll go. Maybe we'll go with the 6 on that one.
Oh, higher than even all of Electroplankton together.
Yeah, but then everything else presumably is going to bring
Yes.
it down if that really is the shining light.
What about Sun Animalcule? I am not making this shit up. Nintendo did.
The sun animalcule. It feels like there should be a moon animalcule as well. Let's see. I think let's go with the 4 on that one.
Okay. Oh, let's break this up with some new English training, Learning with Tempo Beginner Edition.
New English training, Learning with Tempo. Yeah, I think we can just give that a 4.
Okay. Keep it in your pocket for when we get to Advanced Edition later.
Sure.
Electroplankton Lumiloop.
Lumiloop. Okay. Well, see if there's anything that can get me to decide whether this should be higher or lower than the others. I'm not seeing as much coverage for this one, seemingly. So
they didn't release with the first batch. They because it had something in the release calendar to break it up.
Yeah, no, evidently.
And by this point, who the fuck wants to talk about Electroplankton? Also, all of these games came out in the Americas in 2009.
Yeah.
So, in the Americas in 2009, almost all of this, like Electroplankton and basically everything until we get to, I think, Photo Dojo, I think is 2009 in the US, which means that it is just a non-stop fucking wall of DSi, where at least Europe spread the bullshit across 2 years.
Yeah, I think a 4 for that one as well. But
okay, Rec.
Rec.
Which makes you listen to your own voice.
Oh,
Same with VAR voice.
Should definitely get downgraded for that. 4 again.
Okay. Marine crystals with a hyphen.
Yes, marine crystal. Marine crystal.
No fun name here, just marine crystals.
Let's see. We've actually got some sort of more fleshed out reception of this one. I think maybe sort of like snowflakey things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. We could give that one a 5.
Okay. James asking, why did Europe localize a DSiWare app designed to teach Japanese people English? Because they did what they were told.
Yeah, it was very much a direct line, wasn't it, in those days?
Maybe there are going to be people who buy it in, other countries. I don't know if the system level is localized into all the different eFix languages. Maybe it is. I don't know. Same reason that they brought over face training, facial exercises to strengthen and relax from Fumiko Inodo as a DSi exclusive retail game. Electroplankton VAR voice.
Yeah, because it involves voice again. That's a 4.
Okay,
it's not getting a 5.
All right, that's all the Electroplankton.
Yeah.
Spotto.
Spotto.
Yes, with an exclamation point.
Not coming to mind what the bloody hell this is. So once again, we must consult with a plucky duck on a mission, apparently. So I mean, it's a strong start.
Yeah, James, you're not wrong. But the challenges of teaching Germans English are not the same as Japanese people's. And I fail to see the problem.
So yeah, this is 200 points motto, and you sort of liken it in this review on Nintendo Life to a kind of reduced form reflect missile.
Yes.
So using kind of the two. So I don't know, maybe a 6 for that one.
What'd you give Reflect Missile? You gave it...
I never did play that one, so I was going off its reputation, but it was higher than a 6.
It's hard to find in all of this bullshit. Weird. You gave it a 7, yes.
Yeah, so... and it's a 200-point game, so it's cheap, it was a cheap good thing.
What about New English Training, Learning with Tempo Advanced Edition?
Yeah, bring back the 4. I kept it handy.
Okay. About Spotto, ill-behaved ghosts have kidnapped Chicky Wow Wow, President Wow Wow's daughter. Spotto, being the world's foremost bombardier, must follow the ghosts to a haunted house and use his trusty bombs to blast the baddies. Put Chicky Wow Wow in Smash.
That does sound like an exquisitely British description of that game, to be fair.
Pinball Pulse, the Ancients Beckon.
Yeah, so this is Fuse Games that were behind Metroid Prime Pinball and Super Mario Ball, or whatever that was called in the different regions, because I think it was something different. It sounded like it was, very much in the same sort of vein as Metroid Prime Pinball, but without Metroid and stuff. So probably I didn't get around to this, but a 7 I think sounds like it. It was a pretty solid pinball game playing out over the 2 screens in the same way that Metroid Prime Pinball did.
Yeah. Photo Dojo. First question: was this game free in Europe?
I don't remember. I mostly remember Neil.
Yeah, because this was like free for the first month in Europe. I'm... Alright, Neil has sent a picture of Chicky Wow Wow. That sure is exactly what I expected from Chicky Wow Wow. Wow, okay.
It is mostly, that's the first thing I think of. It's just Neil. I guess, so this was... very much sort of like WarioWare. It snapped it, as it was just like trying to get you to use the camera.
So it functioned. So it's not like snapped. So this is it uses the external camera, or internal, I believe. You have to strike 3 different fighting poses, like standby, high punch, and then crouching punch, I believe, or and you do that with you and a friend, and then you've basically made a very bad Mugen fighter where the two of you punch against each other. It doesn't save photos because that would be privacy things, so you have to retake them every time you boot the app.
Yeah. So, it's not the sort of thing that I ever would have got anything out of if I did have.
It's a bad fighting game
at the time, but I think for sort of the goofy kind of response that a lot of people seem to have for it, I still give it a 6.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to go pull up the original reviews ranks that you gave for all the games from Game & Watch games as reference for this next section?
Yeah, it could be good because it was several weeks ago.
Oh, it was several months ago at this point.
Yeah, so it's like...
Oh no, it's really far away. Okay, here's what we're gonna do: is I'm gonna hide a bunch of these sheets so that I can click back and forth between.
Yeah, the decades.
Yes.
Very quickly.
Alright. Here we go. So, our first game is Judge. Also, just to give you an idea of the scope of these DSi War games, I believe they do save your high score. There is no Mario anything. All of these games are available in different collections, playable on the system, but this is just... Hey, or not all, because those are Game Boy, never mind. Yeah. So this is just, hey... Here is this game, give us $2. So first is Judge, which you gave a 4 back in 1979 to 1983.
So I think I have no reason to go away from that at this point.
Okay. For Chef, you gave it a 6.
Yep.
Which feels very generous.
I think it's mostly because I do have good memories of playing that on a Game & Watch collection, but the Game & Watch gallery, Mario kind of version. But it could be a little bit, generous on that basis. But we'll stick with it.
Mario Cement Factory, which you give a 4.
Yeah, we'll stick with that.
Vermin, which you gave a 4.
Yeah,
but at this point, Vermin's been released also 8 times.
Yeah, it's true. You could make an argument, but
Like all of these have.
We'll stick with it.
All right, helmet, not to be confused with octopus. You gave a 5.
Yep, I'm still content with that.
Manhole, you gave a 4.
Yep, let's stick with that.
All right, ball, you gave a 4, but I just want to highlight that the audacity of these bitches finding another way to surface ball in 2010 and say you should pay us for ball.
Well, yeah, they didn't stop there though.
They did not.
Mario Game & Watch last.
They keep coming out with new ways to say you should give us money for this shit.
Yeah, we'll stick with the 4.
Flagman, which you gave a 3.
Yep, 3. Stick the 3 flag up.
And then Donkey Kong Jr., you gave a 6.
Yep. That's,
okay. Metal Torrent, good luck searching for this one online.
Yeah, the name does ring a bell. It's not like one of those ones that we've had a couple of here where it's like, I have no...
I'm just saying, you want to talk about bad SEO.
Yeah, but I seem to remember, it got some decent kind of response. But
it's a shmup.
I didn't play it myself. So I think maybe the non-committal 6 on this
Okay. Looksley's lineup. So this, in Europe, has the honor of launching after hands-on demos with the 3DS.
Yeah.
So people know the 3DS is coming. People have seen it. There are impressions. The 3D screen is real. Or this one that uses the 0.3 megapixel camera to kind of slowly adjust a diorama as you hold your book orientation DSi side to side.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's one of the problems of sort of the relatively kind of compact time frame between the DSi becoming a thing and the 3DS being on the horizon.
Because this is the last year without the 3DS.
As the time, for the time it takes for some developers to kind of try what they see as using the new feature, what can we do with this system. The 3DS is already coming, which would kind of render some of these things sort of obsolete. But in this case, this is good feel apparently, and it seems like
it was received as, wow, this works.
Yes,
but it was also received usually earlier in 2010.
Yeah, so I think a 6 on that one. It seems like it was. Kind of reasonably executed for what it was, but yeah, the timing is not great here. That certainly kind of holds it back from getting the highest score.
Face Pilot, fly with your Nintendo DSi camera. So this is Face Raiders, but worse.
Yeah.
And you pay for it. And Nintendo put this out knowing Face Raiders was on the horizon.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if there's like some sort of... prototype.
I don't know, but this is months away.
Yeah, so it does seem a bit, especially in that context, it seems like a bit of a tough sell. I'll go with the 5 on that.
Okay. 3D Space Tank, which is Escape everywhere else.
Yes, that's right. 3D Space Tank. What an inspiring title. I do quite like this. This is one of the first DSiWare games I got once I had a 3DS and the opportunity to play some of the DSiWare library, and with the kind of controls and everything, it works pretty well. I guess the only thing that was a bit of a shame was just the way that the visual scaled up on 3DS. Obviously, was not very nice. Because of the resolution difference and stuff. But you really didn't want to play it in pixel accurate
because that's so small.
Yeah, once you shrink it down. I mean, the original 3DS screens were not that big, and then you only take up that much of it. And that this game, which is predominantly just black.
Yes, the pixel perfect doesn't make sense until you get to like the new XL.
Yeah, you want that. You need that size to make it more viable. And with some games, maybe the way the graphics are, you could get away with it more because things are more distinct. But the way this is with the stripped down, just mostly black with sort of vector kind of almost style.
Yes.
Aping that what they did on X, for Game Boy in Japan. It didn't scale up well, and it didn't scale down, well either. So there was that. But other than that, I quite liked it. So I think I'll go with a 7.
Okay. Link and Launch.
Oh, see, I don't. the name is like. Probably there's loads of other games that had like Link and stuff in there. So yeah, I'm really not very familiar with this. But let's see. So we have puzzle game. Oh, yeah, that checks out for DSiWare especially.
It's either an arcade game, like a twist on a popular arcade game, or it's a puzzle game.
Yeah, pretty much. The high scores and that kind of stuff. But
it's apps, but while they could say we think that apps are devaluing games.
It's yes, and apparently it's intelligent systems.
Yep.
That gave us this one.
Hot off the heels of 530 Ecoshooter.
It's interesting, because I feel like that's the problem is that if I had a DSi at the time, you might have been more inclined to try some of these, as they were coming out. But then when you sort of was coming back to it a little bit later, once the 3DS came out, it was only the ones that kind of stuck in your head.
Yes.
Because of sort of Light X, where it's like, oh, it's a kind of revival based on that.
Oh, you didn't go back and immediately drop 20 quid on all of the electroplanktons?
No, I didn't exactly. So it's this one. You don't know. Had I had one at the time, it might have been the kind of thing of like, oh, that's quite a quite a neat little thing for that many DSi points. But without too much to go on, I think I'd probably go with the 6 on this one. Seems like it's got some merit. But
what about Flametail?
Flametail. Okay, let's see.
Also, James will appreciate the second to last game on this list.
So it's apparently this is essentially part of Maboshi's arcade.
This is one of the. It is a formalized version of one of those 3 experiences.
Interesting. I guess perhaps a 7 for this one.
Okay. Or a climber.
Yeah, I did play this. I think I did end up playing this at some point on my 3DS. I can't remember in what context exactly, but I do seem to remember it was pretty fun. So maybe a 7 for that as well.
Yeah, like honestly, for me with DSiWare, like 2010 is the year where like outside of like some of these games, like the Flametails and Link and Launches and like the big Nintendo published games that are not just the weekly garbage of Electroplankton and here's some more Game & Watches. But like Nintendo has some good stuff, but then also this is where like Western third parties are shipping their like much more in-depth games at the $8 price tag.
Right.
Snapdots.
Snapdots. Because that's not ringing any bells at all. But well, it seems like we've got some positive reactions on this one. A couple of it's vaguely Picross-ish kind of imagery I'm looking at here.
Top hat, it sure would be interesting to see DSiWare sales numbers. Of the numbers I have seen, they are very interesting.
Oh god.
Can't say much more than that.
Yeah, maybe again tough to say, but probably maybe a 6 for that one.
Would it surprise anyone if I said that like the 4 most profitable weeks of DSiWare were the 4 weeks after the 3DS eShop launched?
Yeah.
And people who had a 3DS but not a DSi suddenly got the 3DS eShop, realized there were 3 things on it. There was, what was it? Excitebike 3D, Link's Awakening DX and Super Mario Land, and then a 3D Pokédex app.
Super Mario Land take you about 10 minutes.
Yes, and then you're like, okay, well, there's this whole other platform. What are the 5 games? Like, yeah, would it surprise anyone if I said those were the 4 most successful weeks of all of DSiWare? Sleep clock. Record and analyze your sleep patterns. Because
is this quality of life?
This is quality of life before they start talking about needing to go investigate quality of life. That's why I said James would love this one.
Of course, yeah. No,
so, how does the DSi record your sleep patterns? I'll give you a hint. You hit a button when you're falling asleep, and then you hit a button when you wake up. And it just tells you how long it is, not like how good was your sleep. It can't do that shit.
Yeah.
What, you think this thing's gonna diagnose you with sleep apnea? No. Did you fall asleep? When did you wake up? What could you have written that on a piece of paper? Yeah. Was that Nintendo published though? No, you gotta interact with the Nintendo brand more.
It's
What a fucking terrible idea. For some reason, this one did not come out in America. Maybe because the FDA might get involved.
Yes, where's the flim flam again, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we could go with the 2 on that.
For a similar reason, maybe that Brain Age might not have come out on Switch. Maybe you want to steer away from false medical claims. And then finally, Spin 6.
Spin 6, okay. It is kind of eye-opening that they did actually put this much stuff.
Yeah, Nintendo's own games, and they are like formal games, and they are usually pretty good.
Yep. So
it's just that they hit it with all of their garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
No one thinks about it.
Especially if you were coming back after we said, makes sense that the best days would be when people were sort of discovering it after the fact with the 3DS. But equally, I think that period would have been more fruitful if the kind of discoverability at that point wasn't impaired by
having to go through 2 whole pages of Game & Watches and Electroplanktons.
Yeah, exactly. That you might have hit it a fair bit bigger at that point if it wasn't just did a deluge of stuff.
Yes, the way that the DSi shop was set up was actually, it seemed stupid as hell at the time, but in retrospect it helped that the tiers were free 200 points, 500 points, 800 or more, see all, and you could by default just not look at the 200 point games.
Yeah,
because that's where Nintendo shoved all the bullshit.
It was the stratified. You're just like, these are the price slots that are available to you. You don't get to sort of
yeah. There's no $3 apps.
It makes it easy to categorize, I guess, and also, if you're a developer, it's like, well, what kind of game are we gonna be, And then it's, well, if we don't want to be in with the junk, you're gonna make it a 500.
Yeah, you gotta make it a $5 game, even if maybe $2 would have been a better fit. Like, do you really want to be competing with a little bit of all-time classic strategy pack and a little bit of Magic Made Fun Matchmaker? That's not fair. The all-time classics were 500s, but the Magic Made Fun and the Game & Watch, of course not.
So I think it's gonna seem like another one of these. So I'll be glib, but I will give it a 6.
Okay.
It does seem like it's got some merit.
In that case, where are we at on the going year by year? Oh, no, I accidentally created a new sheet. Wow, sharp uptick from 09. Probably because we didn't have to do with any of the Magic Made Fun.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of great Wii games.
It's true. The Wii stuff was strong, and the absence of they were. I mean, it just seems like, okay, maybe if I played them, I'd think differently. But the Electroplanktons were definitely worth, a point or 2 more than the magic tricks a lot of the time. So
definitely.
That definitely helped the skill.
Highest year so far is still 03 with Metroid Prime, Wind Waker, F-Zero, Soul Calibur. Like, the lowest score you gave that entire year was a 5 for Mario Party 5 and Top Gear Rally. But...
which I think, well, again, there's people that really like Top Gear Rally, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, more than I, because I'm just guessing, but I think it had some reviews that were on a fair bit higher than that.
Yes.
So even that might have been a bit.
So I'll be very curious if we ever top 03 on your, on here. But yeah, no, that was DSi. Maybe a bit mind-numbing, but definitely higher scores by splitting it up into 2 years than in North America, where everyone's 2009 is just the absolute lowest.
The shotgun.
Because we have all of the bullshit in 1 year. And then all of the okay and to good DSiWare games show up in 2010.
Yeah.
Alright. 2011. We've got our 3DS. We've got 2 DSiWare games. Wii is still the console of concern, although we are announcing the Wii U this year.
Project Cafe era.
Yes. Alright, starting it off with Mario Sportsmix.
Yeah, I didn't get around to this. This is Square coming back to Mario Sports.
Yep.
After the hoops 3-on-3.
Yes, it's...
Before that, we get a few different sports this time.
Hockey, dodgeball, what are they? Yeah, is basketball in it? It would make sense if it is. Oh yeah, it's basketball, hockey, volleyball, and dodgeball.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think based on everything I remember of it, it's between a 6 and a 7. It's for this.
It has online. It's also like none of the individual games are very fleshed out, but they are also significantly more fleshed out than the later 3DS game.
Oh yeah, the much later.
Yes.
Right at the end, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think I'll go with the 6 on this one. But it's got some nice music. Like it's a mix of sort of as you might expect, some Mario remixes, but then every now and again the Square shows a bit, like where you get the sort of urgent newscast battle theme type music creeping in.
Kirby's Epic Yarn.
I would give I believe I gave Wario Shake It an 8, and I will give this an 8 as well.
Okay.
Another good effort from Good Feel. Obviously, he's very gentle, but you've still got the kind of incentives and structure of kind of ending up with the gold medal for how many beads you get to the end. You've still got the kind of patches to collect. Which are very much like the star coins in a new Super Mario Brothers game, and just the commitment to the aesthetic and how cutely and wonderfully that's realised throughout, and as the music is fantastic. I think it deserves the 8.
Okay, We Play Motion, which this is let's take a bunch of our partner studios and have them hyper focus on 1 to 2 experiences.
Yeah, interesting case. I guess you get still trying to drive more
Motion Plus
adoption, but in the run up.
In the run up to Skyward Sword, 100%.
Yeah, so I didn't play this myself, but it seems like they kind of had some interesting uses of the Motion Plus itself. So maybe a 7 for that.
Okay. Xenoblade Chronicles, which comes out a year earlier in Europe than North America. Weirdly, at the time it felt like it was 2 years because of just how fucking few Wii games there were.
Yeah, it's.
But it is only 1 year.
And I guess this was a year after it came out in Japan. Right?
Yes, so it's Japan 2010, Europe 2011, America 2012.
Yeah, so it's now James played this before I did, even though obviously I was in the market where it was actually getting released. But yeah, James had it first from import and was very impressed, and so that ultimately was kind of the impetus for me to get, because it was definitely so as interesting as it looked. It was definitely some hesitancy on my part because the fear of just like am I going to get through this at all? Like it's this vast RPG, and at this point, I just wasn't as kind of at liberty to get dedicate extended play sessions on television. So yeah, it was kind of like, okay, I've been convinced by how many people were seriously. There were domestic reviews of it that were very encouraging and so forth. So I'm going to have to do it. And then when I did get there, it took me a long time. Like I think I probably played. I mean, I saw the ending of the main storyline, and I think it was probably like 80 some odd hours or something, and that took me months to do. So, and I think the other thing that came with that was that I didn't really I didn't really sort of complete as much of the side quest type stuff as you might like. I didn't really experiment with the party as much as I would like, because even though it was something that took months and 80 odd hours, it was like a sprint, because it was, if I'm on the TV, I want to make as much progress as I can, as quickly as I can, and even though not that sort of well traveled with RPGs or the games that Monolith had made in the past or anything. So it wasn't in some ways like the ideal way to experience it, but it was wonderful. I did all the things that people had said about what was so great about it. I felt very much the same in terms of just the scale of it, the world design, the kind of some of the incentives based around actually, discovering specific locations and all this sort of stuff. So I think probably some argument perhaps for going higher, but I'll go with a 9 on Xenoblade.
Mystery Case Files: The Malgrave Incident.
I mean, I remember the name.
It's a hidden object game. It's low resolution.
I don't really have much to go on. Perhaps a 5.
Okay. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think in some ways it's pretty straightforward in terms of my feeling on this is probably an 8. However, I'm not entirely comfortable with it sharing the same score as Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, because I don't feel as warmly about it as I do about those two games. Because I think it would be more that those were, on the higher end of an 8, getting towards a 9, whereas this is on the lower end. But in the end, I think it's going to have to be an 8. I think there's a lot of things about it I do like quite a lot. I like the motion controls in quite a lot of cases, not all of them, but quite a lot of the uses of the gyro are quite good. I like the fact that dungeons are less about using the same item again and again and again. Like so many Zelda dungeons had become like just this. The build up to getting a particular item, and then guess what? After that, everything is solved by using that item. Like there was less of that in this case, more about sort of mixing items together and keeping items useful throughout the game. Rather than just kind of having them be ultra dungeon specific. And some of the ways that the overworld was less kind of just an empty space and more heavily designed, and some like retraversal principles that you might think of from a Metroid game, and the time shift stuff, and also the sword play. I liked for the most part. It could slow things down a little bit at times, but you could also kind of manage it over time in terms of to speed things up where you really wanted to get on with things. But it had issues as well where it was trying to get too much out of what they designed. Asking you to just go back and, oh well, we've remixed it now because we filled it with water and collect some tadpoles, and the game should have been shorter. They didn't have enough to have it be as long as this, and trying to wring too much out of it. So it's another one, not to the same extent as like other end, but it's where it's difficult to balance the things that you really like with the things that you really don't. But overall, it's an 8 for me.
Okay. Kirby's Adventure Wii.
A strong Kirby game for me. We talked about this a little bit on the last RFM because of using some ending music and Kirby Anniversary that coming up. I think an 8 for this one as well.
Okay. Boom Street.
So Boom Street is Fortune Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess it sort of, boom fortune. I guess it makes some sense, but it just seems. I wonder.
The boom and bust market. We got to really go in on Wall Street, which is very big in Europe.
Yeah, the after the financial crisis is still at this point. Interesting. But I mean, I know that the kind of music to this is pretty fun. You get some fun remixes of classic Mario stuff. Again, we've got some Square Enix kind of overlap. But I don't really know much about the merit of this. It's
really good.
It's like a Monopoly type of
yes,
game.
It is. It is Monopoly in that it is about money, but it is about it's a property buying and management game with the core conceit of you are investing in districts that will, and like if you go all in on a district, the percentage of market value, which is like the toll of standing on it or of purchasing, is goes up. And so you're investing in markets, you're withdrawing investments, and then the most crucial thing about this is that if you land on someone else's after you pay the toll, you can just buy it out from under them and fuck them over. And so that leads to a lot of Machiavellian manipulating of who's doing what and just trying to build your own fortune while just crushing everyone else under you further under you. It is kind of capitalism at its most extreme, but like as a party game design, it is probably my favorite and probably the most well regarded party game on Wii, which is very large.
The genesis of the thing about Yoshi and the taxes. I had not put it together before.
No, Yoshi and taxes is from a dumb post around this era on Tumblr.com.
Okay, so
isn't.
I assumed like there was some maybe like a screenshot out of context.
Oh no, that was just someone made a post or something that was like Yoshi's going to jail, and someone was like, "What the fuck did he do?" And he's like, "Avoiding his taxes," and that's where that comes from.
It's bizarre how these things take on such a life of their own based on so little, but there you go. So I think an 8 for that. Perhaps.
That sounds right.
It sounds proportionate.
I really wish that because there have been games because this is a very long-running franchise in Japan.
Oh yeah.
It's just that this is the one that gets localized because it has Nintendo characters. But usually it's just Dragon Quest characters, and like the most recent one was like a 35th anniversary Dragon Quest X Final Fantasy game for PS4 and maybe Switch, but that did not get localized because Square Enix has no desire to localize these things because when Nintendo did it, it didn't sell well, mostly because it's a Wii game that came out 2 games after Skyward Sword.
Yeah, well, no, it was tough to get much of anything to sell on Wii at this point. Is the fact of the matter, but there it is.
All right, on to DS. Mario vs. Donkey Kong Miniland Mayhem. That's the 5th Mario vs. Donkey Kong game.
Yeah, I don't think I played this. I didn't get around to it. I thought about it because I did like the first of this type of game, which is Mario vs. DK2. So the sort of Lemmings style game, but yeah, I would assume probably a 7 might be the appropriate score here, but
I don't know.
I don't really remember if there was anything in particular that distinguished this from its predecessor.
Pokemon Black and White.
Yeah, I didn't kind of jump straight on this, I guess, just because it hadn't been that long since I played Soul Silver, and I was really happy with that. So it just didn't, kind of like I was kind of satisfied for Pokemon at the time. But I think these are pretty well thought of, aren't they? I mean, it was kind of more technologically advanced than the previous DS
so,
games had been, with the polygonal environments.
Yeah, so these are pushing the DS. Um, Story in these ones is they opened the can of worms that everyone has been asking them about since the late 90s, which is, are Pokemon your slaves that you're making fight? And the story is about an antagonist that is like, no, we need to free Pokemon. You're enslaving them. What the fuck are you doing? And it turns out that they are an idealist, but they are being manipulated by an actual evil organization that really just wants to take over the world. But Black and White has interesting multiplayer stuff. It introduces 2 different new types of battles, 3-on-3s, and then the weirdest ones, which are called rotation battles, where you're sending 3 out, but only 1 is active at a time. And any turn, you can rotate and swap in a different Pokemon. So you don't know which one you're about to target. It's weird. It had Black and White as version exclusives have a whole different city exclusive to each. Where Black has Black City and White has White Forest. These are. Oh, and the other thing is that was maybe a little controversial at the time is that Black and White each together they introduced 150 new Pokemon, and so until you get to the until you hit end credits, you don't see any Pokemon that was introduced in previous games. You don't see Pikachu until credits are over.
I remember, hearing about this. Yeah, I kind of admire the commitment there.
Yeah.
It must be different. You know, you're going to upset some people when you do that, but it's kind of you're following through on. These are the Pokemon for this region, and this is how it's going to be, how it's going to balance until we kind of open it out afterwards.
Yes.
So it's kind of good follow through. I think again, tough to say, but I'm thinking maybe an 8 for that.
Yeah, makes sense. Kirby Mass Attack.
Yeah, I like this. Kirby sort of spin-off. It almost feels like it could be Kirby's Epic Yarn kind of felt like it could have been a Yoshi game. This feels like it could have been a sort of touchscreen Pikmin spin-off before Hey Pikmin, years later. But it works on its own merits. It weaves in like Kirby aesthetic and sound and everything pretty well as well. It's a good looking game. I'd give that an 8 also.
Okay. Dragon Quest VI: Realms of Reverie.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit less enthusiastically kind of reviewed this than the sort of like DQ 4 and 5 remakes.
Kind of because it was just here's another one.
Yeah, I think a bit of fatigue probably, but I think it also, I think DQ6 technologically might have been rather impressive on Super Famicom, but in terms of the actual sort of the game itself is not necessarily as loved as its predecessors. That's the impression I was left with. But
DQ 3 and 5 are very, very beloved. 4 and 6 a little less so.
I see. Yeah, so it's probably at 5 definitely. Because it was the one before. It just seems like it's much more fondly thought of. So yeah, I'm not entirely. Again, tough to say having not played it, but maybe a 7 for that.
Okay. Yeah, and then of course people really love 7, 8, and 9.
Yes. Yeah.
So 6 feels like the kind of the weird one there. Inazuma 11, a wild card coming in 2011.
Yeah, this is late. I guess it's kind of somewhat an overhang of like level 5 stuff blowing up kind of belatedly in Europe. So it's like, well, they've got that football thing. We should do something with that over here. And I never got around to it, even though I do like watch quite a lot of soccer. I do like, Leighton at this point, but it hadn't sort of got around to ever. I still haven't played it because they've had a few different ones, like some more like arcadey kind of game on Wii. I seem to remember it's Strikers or something. I think it was called.
Yeah.
Various ones I've thought about, but I've never actually got to. But I think it's seemingly like a pretty decent game. So maybe a 7 for that as well.
Okay. Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2.
Oh yeah, all the Dragon Quest stuff coming on. So. Yeah, the Monsters sort of sub-series I've not played at all, and this particular game I don't have any familiarity with. So yeah, I might have to just have a quick look up here because it's not something that I feel sort of all that comfortable with. Let's see. So yeah, seems like another 7 probably is in order on based on what I'm seeing on that.
Okay. Professor Leighton and the Spectre's Call.
Yeah, so this is like the first of the next trilogy.
Yes, but it's DS.
But it is DS, yeah, whereas like Miracle Mask and Azran Legacy, I think, are going to be on 3DS. It's a little bit awkward in that way.
And Miracle Mask gets shown off at E3 2010.
Because there was a launch 3DS game in Japan.
Yes.
Miracle Mask. So, yeah, this was awkward, and this one for me slipped through the cracks. I didn't get around to playing. Is it is it the something flute in Japan? In America?
Yeah, Spectre's Flute.
Yes.
And this has Leighton Life, which is the predecessor to Fantasy Life, which is like a fucking 50-hour RPG on top of it that they also localized.
That's crazy. I guess it shows you how well the games were doing that they signed off on that rather than just cut it out. So that is it's tough to score this on that basis, but maybe I'll go with an 8 on that. It's still based on everything I've read. It seems hard to imagine I would enjoy it as much as Lost Future or Unwound Future in America.
Yeah, Unwound Future. It's a neat it's a neat game. I like the central twist conceit of the story. I think that apparently they did cut Leighton Life in Europe.
Oh, they did cut it out. Yeah, I would have.
But it came out in America and Japan, but not Europe. Wow.
It's just the sheer volume.
Yeah, this is just too much.
It's just and again, when they were trying to close the gap with the Japanese game.
I totally understand. Do you want to revise your score for the European version?
All right, let's go with the 7 instead.
Okay, yeah, wow. So the I just think like honestly the number one thing is just I think that original trilogy young Luke is better than sequel trilogy baby Luke. And he is the babiest of Lukes in this one.
It was not my immediate thought from those games. So wouldn't it be better if Luke were younger?
Yes. Let's tell the story of when Luke, a very young child, met the professor for the first time. That's what this game is. On to DSiWare, which normally is a threat, but here we only have 2 games.
Yeah.
Nintendo Countdown Calendar, which released after the 3DS eShop in Europe, July 7th, 2011, 3 months after the 3DS. In Japan, this was a December 2009 game and a September 2010 game in North America. This is just... What the fuck are you doing, Nintendo of Europe? What this is you say, I am looking forward to... I don't know. What's the release date of the Wii U? Like November 2012? And you write that in, and then on the operating system, because the DSi apps could have dynamic animating like icons on your home menu that pulled in a saved variable, it would pull in on your OS like 13 days until blank. That's all it was.
Well, for a calendar app, showing up late is especially, I think, a problem. So it can have a 2.
Almost 2 years after it came out in Japan.
Definitely not.
And then Four Swords Anniversary Edition.
Yeah, I had this.
It was free.
I played it. It's nice for it to. Yeah, exactly. It was free. It was an anniversary sort of thing, and it's just nice to kind of see the game because I've mentioned before I didn't have the link to the passport and stuff, and kind of I did get to play it a little bit in just 2 people, but a bit of multiplayer and stuff. So I think a 7 for that.
Okay, it is not lost on me that in 2010. The anniversary for the 25th Mario anniversary was treated like dog shit, and in 2011 they treated the 25th Zelda anniversary so well, and then in 2020 they did the opposite, where Mario got a great 35th and Zelda for 35 was like, I really hope you like Skyward Sword, my dude. All right, on to the 3DS. Yes?
No, it's absolutely true.
Yes.
It just came round again, didn't it? I remember being at the concert in 2011 for Zelda. It seems like it was a long time ago, but it seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, no, that was 10 years.
A different life altogether, to be honest.
AR games.
Yeah. So I mean, these are kind of mildly amusing sort of novelty.
Unlike DSi, where they function.
Yeah, and I mean it is at least it's some sort of with the lighting and the camera quality still not great.
Oh, of course not.
There's still some kind of wonkiness there.
It is better. I didn't say good.
Yeah, I would say a 5 for that.
Okay. Face Raiders.
Probably 5 for that as well.
Okay.
Similar.
But
still.
As a weird exception, because this had so much DLC, I'm just putting this here in 2011. For the whole life cycle of 3DS, Street Pass Mii Plaza.
Yeah, tough to rate this one, isn't it? Because it's kind of like it changed over the years, and not just because of stuff that got added or updates, but also like how many Street Passes you got changed quite a lot,
yes.
and the way you got them changed because you kind of they did the kind of Street Pass hub thing eventually, where if you went to like a mall or something, it kind of saved up Street Pass.
In the US that was McDonald's.
Yeah, and so then it's okay, you could actually, that was sort of maybe after some of the Street Pass it kind of died off a bit, but then it's okay, well now I can actually get some again. And fill in some of those last puzzles that I didn't have and stuff. But then eventually that goes away. It's kind of a weird ebb and flow of activity and updates, and so it's tough to score. I think overall I'm going to go with a 7. I do think it added quite a lot to the sort of overall experience of being a 3DS owner and giving you a reason to kind of check in with it. But obviously it was kind of thin, and maybe I do feel like if they did get to a point with notable development partners like Good Feel and stuff, like making those extra games, if they'd done that sooner, I feel like it could have kept that a bit more vibrant and robust.
Yes. Instead of just resuscitating it twice.
Yeah, it just felt like if that had come earlier and more give more momentum behind it, it could have done more good than it did, and maybe that score would be higher.
Nintendogs plus cats, French Bulldog and new friends, Golden Retriever and new friends, and Toy Poodle and new friends.
Yeah, it's really an upset that I never got this, because I did quite enjoy my time with the original Nintendo. So, I didn't pay full price for it, and, obviously it was somewhat limited, but, it wasn't like I regretted the purchase or anything at all. And then you add in cats, and I love cats. I'm more of a cat person than a dog person, so it's it should have been an easy win, but 3DS games are expensive. The console was expensive.
Oh, it sure was.
Yeah, having got the console, at launch basically, and all that, and Pilot Wings was the launch game I went with. it just I wasn't going to get it at launch there because it was just more money to spend on something which I felt like it might be quite pleasant. I might quite like it, but it's not. Would it be enough to justify at that price? But then I also never went back to it when presumably I assume at some point it would have been more affordable, but I just didn't go back to it. So on that basis, kind of a little bit tough to score. I mean, I would assume it would benefit from just the improved graphical fidelity.
It looks, even to this day, it looks really good on 3DS for a 3DS game.
The cuteness factor is essential to this game, and the fact that you could make the puppies and the kittens like cuter than obviously didn't have kittens before, but than they a lot cuter than they were on DS. It's a big deal. So I think I'll probably go. I feel like I probably gave a 7 to the original Nintendogs, and it's going to get one here again. But I guess it's like trading off the fidelity with the lack of the lesser novelty, because there was a novelty factor before with the stuff like the voice recognition and the bark mode, which was also kind of like Proton Street Pass a bit, which had obviously kind of worn off by now. So we'll stick with the 7.
Pilot Wings Resort.
Yeah, I quite liked it. It was obviously not the deepest game, but Pilot Wings has always been like a super early kind of thing. But it's something that is a decent fit for a system launch. Here, you kind of show it off the stereoscopic 3D in a nice way when you're talking about a flight game and the different, especially stuff like the rocket belt and all that. Like it just it feels like a really good fit to show off that kind of functionality, and it somewhat does, I felt anyway. I don't know how much of it is illusory, but kind of felt like it is helping you kind of in the gameplay, like making precise kind of movements and stuff. So I think I'd go with a 7 on this one as well. It's the Woohoo location was kind of familiar by now, so it was kind of good and bad with that, but I think overall, they kind of made pretty good use of it. And the music, I think, should get a mention because that was actually pretty damn nice. They actually weave some things in with, kind of like Pilot Wing 64 motifs and stuff. So, yeah, I think a 7 for Pilot Wings Resort.
Awesome. Steel Diver. Talking about 3DS games are expensive.
Yeah, I did get this eventually, but not at full price. It was, it might have been. No, it wasn't secondhand, I don't think, but it was a lot cheaper.
There sure was a drop at some point, at least in the West or US.
Yeah, so it's very much like the Yoshi Touch and Go type of situation. I talked about that when we covered that. In terms of, it's like I feel like I'm kind of interested in seeing how this plays, and it's kind of. It is like a high score type of game, but it's just how quickly you complete the levels. It's a time trial scenario here, but I'm not interested in paying full price for that, especially what full price was for 3DS games as compared to DS games, because it's quite a bit of money. And with that type of game, if you bounce off it a bit, or even if you like it somewhat, but you're just not into like improving your runs, it's just not there. The value's not there. So I waited until I could get it cheaper, and on that basis, I quite liked it. I think you got the whole kind of lower the touchscreen control panel. It's a bit like it's a game played by Sandlot, the Earth Defense Force guys on DS, called Shosoju Mecha MG, I think it was called, where you were controlling various giant robots. We had the touch panel, and there's like levers and different buttons and all that, and it's very much like that, but for a submarine. And so I kind of knew I might like that somewhat. And it's not the deepest game, ironically enough, but it is like, I think if you could get into the idea of like, okay, controlling this is like the whole idea of the game is that control is fiddly. Like that's the game. Basically.
Yes.
Controlling this thing is fiddly, but you can get used to kind of balancing all these things tightly enough that you can start to like really get it down to actually control it quite well and get like better times and stuff. I'd go with a 6 it's tough to balance all those things, but I'd say 6.
Yes, very much based on, very close actually to the DS prototype. Yeah, that of course, I will not say how, but is playable in a modern context.
Do you think they ever dusted off that DS prototype as DSiWare and then thought, no, we'll put it on 3DS instead?
I think that sounds very, very reasonable. But of course, it's before the eShop, so you have a launch title on cartridge. What? You're saying that we're making a whole new type of cartridge so that all the cartridges are expensive right now? Weird. Let's go ahead and sell it for full price. Ocarina of Time 3D coming a few months later.
Yeah, weird how late this was in a way. It kind of feels like it should have been a launch title when it is, a port of an N64 game. But
yeah,
it was in June or whatever, a few months after the March release, and it's obviously for the most part a very nicely done port of a classic game, and I quite like the gyro aiming to kind of speed things up a little bit. Obviously, the gyro aiming on the launch models, especially the gyro aiming and the stereoscopic 3D,
not really compatible.
Don't play that nicely together.
We'll get to that with the next one too.
Yes, but yeah, it's not much to fault here. Some nice improvements in terms of some of the character faces and things, just some cleanup and the textures and the depth effect really brought something to it, even if it wasn't particularly designed for it. So I'll go with an 8.
Yeah, the touchscreen on some of those dungeons with key item mapping.
Oh yeah,
was
the water temple.
Yes.
I mean, the water temple they actually did redesign a bit. They kind of made it. They had those wall kind of trails, they had. So it basically drew a path on the wall to kind of show you this takes you to the place where you can change the water to this level. They made it all more explicit, but even more important than that was just the fact that you could fucking take the boots off so easily and put them back on again so easily. That was, and all the inventory management and that kind of stuff, much better. It did add quite a lot.
Yes.
In that sense.
Yeah, so again, we are in the time where, for folks who might not remember, because for us this feels like to me 3DS feels way more recent than Skyward Sword, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because Skyward Sword is more recent than this, but for people who do not remember or who were not following games 10 years ago because, I don't know, you're 25 or younger, the way that this worked was, that Nintendo released Nintendogs Plus Cats, Pilot Wings, and Steel Diver, fucked off for a few months, put out 2 N64 ports, and then fucked off until the end of the year, because they couldn't get these games out fast enough, because the 3DS was rushed, kind of. Yeah. It was brought to market very quickly.
It kind of happened, the same thing, and it seems weird that it could happen to both systems in a way.
Yes.
You might think you'd learn the lesson a bit, but
no.
The bottom fell out of the DS and the Wii faster than they seemingly imagined. And then it's like, oh shit, well that successor that we was projecting would come out at this point now has to come out earlier.
I mean, the hardware is done, the software's not, though.
Where are the games going to come from? And then
yes.
seemingly just a real scramble. And of course, because it did not launch well, you've got the price cut, you've got the and it's all and it really came down to that November.
Yes,
when Skyward Sword was coming out, had to save the platform with Mario Kart and Super Mario 3D Land, and it did.
Yes, but that's the one time that Nintendo desperately needed to turn something around, and they did it first try. But the price cut, my understanding was so they launched the system at $250, in the US, and then they cut it to 180 like 5 months later.
Yeah.
Which was
pretty drastic.
Which was like a press release that I woke up to and blinked myself awake, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what the fuck am I reading? You're cutting $70 off this thing less than half a year later, and they did give 20 games of varying quality
and a certificate
to
let's not forget that. And
anyone.
You could put that as your favorite game.
Yes,
your profile.
Yes,
for
you
the
could.
Rest of your life.
Yes, you got to be an ambassador was how they tried to break it to people, but no, my understanding was, as part of the scramble to release this thing early, and this is 10 years ago now. This story that I heard 10 years ago, I'm sure I can share this. That it was just a manufacturing, like, it did cost more. Like, it cost more than it did, 5 months in, not because of, like, the technology is more mature, which usually, the technology matures and the MOQ and the price per component goes down, usually about a year and a half into a hardware. They just put in so many rush orders to manufacturing that the costs went up. So they priced it based on, we need this thing out sooner. It has this 3D feature. If we hit it while 3D is hot, surely people will pay $250. We're Nintendo.
Yeah. That was the other thing, is the post Avatar, like, 3D burning. It's like 3D. It's like, well, people are kind of enthusiastic about 3D again, but everybody hates the glasses. So glass is free 3D. Sure, that.
Yes.
That's gold. But yeah, you can understand that other than just the fact that DS, the software sales just went off a cliff. That they did not anticipate. That's the other thing that you want to bring it forward for, is to kind of like, this is a moment that we can exploit. But yeah, it didn't really work out that way.
Yes. So hardware is coming in very hot, which means, oh fuck, why does my entire apartment smell like smoke? I'm sorry. Trying to figure out why the hell everything smells like smoke today. Really just since the stream started. But it's not coming from my office. It's like coming from the neighbors or something. Anyways. So they're trying to get this hardware out really fast. Software is not ready. Like, clearly you look at, like, some of these 64 3D ports, and you're like, well, one of those they probably at some point envisioned being a launch title, if not both.
Yeah.
The eShop fucking wasn't ready for months. That's how hot the system came in. There was
June. That was June as
yes,
well, wasn't
the
it?
internet browser didn't come in for a while, and if it was on the home screen, and if you tapped it, it just said, "Nah, come back in a few months." And it's like, what the fuck is this system that like came in so hot that like literally everyone was saying, "What's the killer app?" It's Street Pass. It's the concept of Street Pass. God help you if you don't live in a big city, but it's Street Pass, and, like, what are the launch titles? Well, what are the key third-party launch titles? It's a port of Street Fighter, because Street Fighter 4 is really good, and it's this Tom Clancy RPG that was a DS game that got ported to 3DS. Why is that a killer launch title? Because it fucking was a fully fleshed out game and then got up-ported, and it's not someone scrambling to make anything for this new system.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It was kind of, it was thin. It's weird that it's kind of, because I didn't have everything at launch. Like all the different systems over the years. Talk about Wii, like I was kind of vacillating, and then you couldn't fucking get it.
Yes.
So. But then, for whatever reason, I did get this at launch. I guess I was quite, having seen a 3DS at an event beforehand, and the effect and all, I was quite enamoured with the 3D. I always liked the 3D, and I play, still even now, I play 3DS.
Agree.
If it is a 3DS game with 3D, I'll play with it on. But games-wise, yeah. I mean,
it was rough for that first year. So yeah, Star Fox 64 3D, which had... its two big new features were gyro aiming with the 3D, and for local multiplayer, we will put a about 5 frames per second refresh rate video feed of your face while you're trying to play a video game on everyone else's screen.
Yeah, it's some strange stuff going on there. I guess, I mean, the the actual kind of the biggest benefit I think of this version of the game, as someone who played Star Fox 64 very thoroughly and loves it a lot, is the fact that you've got level per level kind of score challenges that you can practice. So it's like no longer, if you wanted to like do a high score run on a particular stage, do you have to run through the game to get to that stage to play. It's just like, okay, and in the original you had like specific medals, so it's like, okay, if you get it's all about how many hits you registered, which wasn't just how many enemies you killed. You got bonus hits for like if you killed them all in one go, or if you killed them with splash damage, which is kind of one of the weirder aspects of the scoring system there. But then in the 3DS version, we've got individual levels, and you've actually got like bronze, silver, gold.
Yes.
So to go beyond just the medal requirement originally and to see how many hits you really can rack up. All that to me added significantly to the replayability of the game, because it's not like, all right, a run through Star Fox 64 is hardly long. We know this. But if you just want to play a particular level, you just want to play that level. You don't want to play others to get there. So, and if you just want to practice kind of that particular level, to then maybe take that knowledge into a full run through the game, trying to see how many. So that I think was a big help. The 3D is well suited to this kind of game, a rail shooter, if things coming in the screen and all that. So in that sense, it was a more natural fit than something like Ocarina. And you also had more kind of explicit like upgrades in something like the instrument quality on the music was better for the most part. I mean, sometimes it kind of sounded a little bit wrong if you were really used to the original, but I think the fear of people feeling that is what made them not change it for Ocarina.
Yes.
Like, look, we will just have the music exactly as it was, which is that's fine, I guess. But with Star Fox 64, I think it did benefit from the improved instrument quality, because the instrument quality was not great on N64. So, yeah, overall, I think, some of the new stuff in terms of the multiplayer, I did try it. I think it didn't really kind of do a lot. If it had been online, maybe I would have used it more, but probably even then, not a great deal. But it's a really good version of a really good game. So I think I'm going to go with a 9, even though it's probably more of an 8.5, but I'm going to go with a 9.
Okay. Super Mario 3D Land, one of the 2 games to turn around an entire system.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on this game, but I mean, I think it really delivered for me. My favourite game that year, for sure. Definitely kind of. I mean, Skyward Sword was one of my favourite games that year, absolutely. But
I just wish that the first half was more interesting or went faster.
Yeah, I think it is it still is one of the reasons why this is not going to get a 10, and one of the reasons why you could make an argument that it's more of an 8.5, is that it does feel a little bit like it suffered from the pressure of, we've got to get this thing out, it's got to be now, and so what you end up with is this kind of really straightforward run through the first half of the game, and then a second half kind of remix of the game, which gets more interesting and more challenging, but obviously it's not as fresh.
Yes.
I mean, you look at where you end up with 3D World, and that's obviously not just the graphics are better and all this kind of stuff, but that's what you're more looking for, is that kind of progression of difficulty and sophistication, and this feels like a product that was sort of stretched apart and into these 2 halves, and it does suffer a little bit, but it is, and it was at that time, a sort of the fulfillment for me of a sort of wish. As much as I loved Super Mario 64, we talked about this when we covered it, that it wasn't exactly how I imagined Mario in 3D as a child, and this is much more what I would have imagined, but doing it really well. And I know it didn't really, land with everybody straight away. Like there was some of that sort of reaction early on, like with the first level where you're kind of going forward into the screen, or it's just, oh, what's this, like Crash Bandicoot shit, and was some of the kind of response to it. But for me, with the final product, I loved. I felt like the stereoscopic 3D brought quite a lot to the table, but I just loved mostly the fact that it felt like a really straightforward but skillfully executed bringing of 2D Mario style action into the third dimension, and feeling like it added something. So I think it is worth a 9.
Okay. You know what's not worth a 9? Super Pokemon Rumble.
So we're up to $40 for this.
We are up to 40 fucking bucks for this. A game that is not much more content than the WiiWare game, which you gave a 6, which is literally you are a toy Pokemon, you have a weak attack and a light attack on A and B, run forward up this linear hallway, and maybe you'll get other Pokemon toys to drop from killing them, where you can get that Pokemon toy, and maybe you either get one with a better stat, or if a Pokemon you don't have. Rinse and repeat, endlessly, 40 fucking bucks.
Yeah, there's no way this is getting more than a 5.
We need to get Pokemon on the 3DS in a paid form stat.
Yeah, it's just sort of fill in a Pokemon-shaped void in a you need to have the word
because
on that.
Black and White were also March.
Yeah, no, exactly. They were still firmly in. We're gonna get Black 2, White 2.
Yes, we sure are. And those games literally have a menu option that says connect with 3DS features.
We're nowhere near getting real Pokemon on 3DS.
No, that waited until the 2DS.
Yeah, no, exactly, which is quite a while later to get that. That's the funny thing, though, to me. It's like, like Pokemon waiting to be on the cheaper, more kid-friendly version of the system and all that. And now we've got like, the Sinnoh remakes like burning up the chart.
Yeah, $60 each. Like, yeah, no, they
so much.
Like you were talking about on a recent RFN. Yeah, if James said if you're an investor, you just look at that and you're like, fuck you, you wasted so much money. You could have put out Pokemon you could have put out Black and White as 3DS games that didn't even use 3D, charged the extra money. Fuck it.
Yeah, it's hard to escape that feeling they left money on the table
yes.
with stuff like that. But with this, there's not so much, very much not a case of leaving it on the table. So, yeah, it's either a 4 or a 5, really just because of that value thing is just seems so out of whack. So maybe we'll go with the 4.
Okay. The game that actually did save the 3DS.
Yeah, this really, really saved it.
Mario Kart 7.
It really established Mario Kart as... because Mario Kart Wii was absolutely enormous, but I feel like Mario Kart 7, like, essentially continuing that and then some in terms of how it's, helped save the 3DS and was the biggest selling game.
This thing was so rushed it didn't even have Waluigi.
You forget that, considering like latterly, especially like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it feels like we've just got everything.
Yeah, no, this thing was like, fuck it. What do we need to do to get a game out this year? No, exactly. No. Don't talk to me about we can't. This game is coming out this year, and you're not patching it.
Hell or high water, and we did get some stuff like that massive woohoo track glitch where like you could skip out a whole section, which made playing online miserable for a non-trivial period of time.
Yes,
because some complete shitbag would just pick it. Several shitbags would just keep picking it mercilessly, even though it's like, look, it's pretty obvious by the ridiculous deluge of people picking this that you are not the only person that knows this trick.
Yes.
So you're not even guaranteed to win based on this, and meanwhile we get the misery of playing this track again and again and again. So yeah, there were some downsides that came with how hot this was coming, but all in all, it's pretty damn well executed considering how hot it was coming in. It's a very strong Mario Kart game. I feel like it built off Mario Kart Wii, which I seemingly like probably a bit better than some people, pretty strongly. And the track designs and everything. I guess it didn't necessarily have the most in terms of like additional features or whatever, But I guess you didn't really have any kind of substitute. We went from the kind of mission mode in DS to the events on Wii. I don't think there was anything analogous to that on Mario Kart 7, but. Online play at this point, felt like it had progressed pretty nicely once they patched out, some of the things that were blatantly wrong with it. So
yes,
I think I would go with an 8 on this as well. Although you could make an argument for going higher in terms of its like significance for saving a platform.
Yes, well,
good God. Not only, Nintendo were obviously pretty acutely aware of how much they could not afford for it to fail at the time, but considering what was coming with Wii U, they probably, I don't think they probably fully appreciate just how much this could not fucking fail.
3D Classics Excite Bike. Let's talk about the launch of that eShop.
Yeah, so we've got the 3D, the sort of limited range with Eureka, I think it was.
Yes.
They're the Endless Ocean people. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, so Eureka does a lot. So for example, they do Tetris 99 and similar.
Yeah.
It's funny because Eureka, I literally have a cousin named Erica that is spelled the exact same way, and so it takes me a lot to not look at that and just say Erica, even though that is extremely not.
I honestly don't know if that's correct.
It is Eureka.
I've just heard a handful of.
Yes, so they've done Endless Ocean, Dr. Mario Online RX, Dr. Mario Express, or a little bit of Endless Ocean 2, Bust-A-Move Universe, which was a 3DS launch title, AR games, and all of the 3D classics. So they were so busy in 2011 on 3DS.
Yeah, this was some high leverage.
Yes.
Work.
They did Tekken 3D Prime Edition for 3DS, Teddy Together, which we'll get to.
That's another one that's hung around over here.
Yes.
Cheap copies of that still turn up.
Dr. Luigi, Dr. Mario Miracle Cure, Fighting EX Layer, Tetris 99, Super Mario 35, Pac-Man 99, Fighting EX Layer, Another Dash.
Well, it's so they've it's someone that Nintendo's kind of looked to for these kind of
just like very, very, oh my god, we need to put shit out fast on 3DS. Who has a dev kit and is really fast? Eureka.
Yeah, kind of like it's like they're like an NFL analogy. When you have what you call a swing offensive lineman, it's like he's not necessarily particularly that great at any particular position, but it's like you don't know where the next injury is going to come from, and it's just like, well, he can just go in there, like he can play a bit.
Yes,
he'll have to.
They already made AR. They already made the AR games app. They already made a full retail launch title. Fuck it, just get in the source code to a few retro games.
So if we play guard this week, maybe you play center next week, because these are quite disparate. These are not like, aren't they?
Yes.
Updating classic pixel art games for stereoscopic 3D versus like Endless Ocean.
Yes, versus AR.
That's really, really different. But Excite Bike, I had that, and it just seemed like it was like one of the more natural choices, with what that was doing with the pixel art originally with perspective. So an Excite Bike is a sort of respectable enough kind of game. So I think I'd give that a 7.
Okay. Pokédex 3D.
I have nothing to contribute on this. Would you say anything about this?
Yeah. They released this for free, and then a few months later they delisted it and launched Pokédex 3D Pro, which was $15. That's what you
leaving money on the table.
Yes, talking about leaving money on the table. They released it for free and then delisted it really fast.
Someone got wind of it up higher up the chain and was like, "What are you doing?"
So yes, this is the big thing that this does, very weirdly, is this is the first step. So this is them recanonizing 3D models of all the Pokemon. I'm not speaking to the quality, this is just an interesting historical fact. So this is them making 3D models of all the Pokemon up to the end of Black and White. Right. And then they then they would optimize all of those for X and Y, for like real-time gameplay, and then that's it. They're done making 3D models. Those are the 3D models they're still using.
Yeah, well, if you do it once, do it right. You know, why do you need to do it again?
Yes. So this is kind of the first step on that. James points out also historical trivia. NWR broke the announcement of this thing, and NOA got pissed.
Oh wow! Yeah,
how dare you know about Pokédex 3D?
But there's nothing.
There's nothing interesting. It got announced at E3. There was a slide in their press conference that showed a human next to. It was AR. Is what it was. Yeah. So it's put your very low resolution picture next to this character model, which of course is a part of Pokemon Go that you can use on the very, very high resolution cameras of modern smartphones.
Yeah.
But no, this is kind of just a whatever placeholder. This is the first Pokemon 3DS thing. This is, oh my god, this system has been alive for 3 months, and this brand has no native 3DS applications. Oh god, oh god, oh god. What's the quickest thing we can put out? Literally the quickest thing we can put out. Alright, then what's the quickest thing we can put out to make money? Because those were not the same answer.
So, maybe a 3 for that?
Alright, I look forward to what you're going to rate 3D Pro in 2012.
It's got to be worth something more.
I think they literally just added, stickers and glitter and shit for 15 bucks.
Is it like Internet Movie Database Pro? I don't
know. Unfortunately not. 3D Classics Xevious.
Well, this seems like I've never had this, but it does seem like it's one of the more sort of good fits in terms of this
it's layered
for being a 2-layered shooter way before that was very common, because it's really quite early as an arcade game. It's it isn't it's pre-NES, but it's not pre-Famicom, because I think it was in the gap between when Famicom and NES came out, 80. No, it's 82, isn't it? It is pre-Famicom.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a really early shooter, but it was quite progressive, and then it got a Famicom port that was, I think, relatively a big deal in Japan, but it wasn't necessarily such a big deal elsewhere. But just regardless of its popularity, just the fact that it had those layers with you're shooting enemies in the air, but then you're bombing things on the ground that are also attacking you from the ground, just seemed to make sense. So I think I might pick some of these up before the 3DS does die completely. These 3D classic, certain ones I will not be picking up. But so I think I'll give this a 7 as well.
Yeah, these are never going to go on discount, so it's never not a safe time.
Just either get it or not.
Yeah. So you might have been referring to this 3D Classics Urban Champion in the year 2011.
Baffling on multiple levels. So first of all, just that this game. I mean, Excitebike might not be Super Mario Brothers. But it's there's a certain amount of popularity there. But with Urban Chapter, but also, like we said, the sort of what it was doing with perspective, and Xevious, with the layers. With this, it's not that popular. Neither is it doing anything particularly interesting with perspective.
Well,
graphics that I've ever seen, but
not on the original. With this, you can they made a 3D model so you can go over the shoulder.
Yeah, but couldn't they have done that with something else?
Yes, they sure fucking could have.
It's nothing particular about this game, but
no, it's a terrible game. It's not a good version of it. They put in more energy than it was ever worth it.
Yeah, so I mean, what do we have on this before? Just for the
oh god, I may have hid that. Let me find when
Sorry.
It's okay. When did Urban Champion?
If I had to guess, it'd be a 3, but it wasn't long ago.
Yes, when did I'll just unhide all of these. When did it come out in Europe?
Assuming it did.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Maybe this is the first time you're rating it. I think this is the first time you are rating it. I do not believe Urban Champion is on this list, and I think that means it never came out in Europe.
Well, it's not totally shocking because again, it was an early game, and we know that the NES obviously took its time coming to Europe, and they didn't go back and do everything, even though in some cases it went back.
It says it came out in '86. Did we miss that? Do we have to go retroactively?
Put it into.
Oh, we sure do.
Because again, I mean, it may not have necessarily come up with the NES itself. Didn't come out till '87 in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
No, this is. Whoops. Hang on. I have to cut this cell and insert it here because it's an NES game. Sorry, real-time editing of this spreadsheet. Wow, somehow missed. It was not on the list because it is so no one knows the release date in Europe. Only that it theoretically came out in '86. So, yeah. Greg, what do you give Urban Champion NES in '86's context?
In '86's context, all right, maybe I'll be a little more generous, given that this is especially with it being '86,
yes.
Not here it is in 1988 or '89.
Yeah.
You could have a 4.
Okay. Well, we went back and lowered that average. Hell yeah. By adding a new game and then rating it less than a 5. What about in 2011?
3D gives it a 3.
Okay.
That's gonna work.
3D Classics Twinbee.
Yeah, again, I didn't play this, but this is a shooter, a later shooter in the Xevious sort of mold, with the 2-plane kind of approach and everything. But yeah, I have played the game. It's on some collection I own. I'm blanking on which one it is at the minute. With playing with like a flip grip, Tate orientation of the Switch and stuff is pretty fun, and seems like it's a decent choice. Although obviously nothing terribly different from Xevious. But
yes, no, it's just a good game.
I would go with a 7 on that too.
Okay. Freaky Forms, your creation's alive.
Yeah, I didn't play this, but some people seem to have some kind of warmth towards it.
I mean, look, they say it in the name. It's weird, dude. So, this is Nintendo's first 3DS eShop game that is original and published.
Yeah.
And what the fuck is this?
No, and what I forget is just sort of how much having kind of designed these things, the sort of substance of what you did after that really brought to the table.
Yeah, it is literally just draw shapes, connect them in a nightmarish ways, and give them a voice, tell them what to yell. You can absolutely make them yell for death. And then maybe they'll platform, and the platforming is garbage, and the level design is basically non-existent. It's really just make these fucking weird things and then street pass them to other people.
Yeah, and propagate the weirdness, which
Yeah.
is...
It's really just basically make monstrosities that are begging to be put out of their misery they experience. So this is the $15 version. There is a retail release later. You can no longer get the retail release because it is an entry point for hacking your 3DS.
Oh, it's one of those, yeah.
Where you can scan a QR code to get a very specific monster that destroys the 3DS's security, so you cannot get Freaky Forms Deluxe anymore. I think you can still get Freaky Forms 1.
Was it Cubic Ninja?
Yes, that was
it's quite famous for allowing that sort of thing. It's probably either a 5 or a 6, I think. We'll go with a 5.
Okay. Cubic Ninja might be the more well-known entry point, but Freaky Forms Deluxe got handed to me by Nintendo. I reviewed that game, so I have a Nintendo-provided entry point to hacking my 3DS, which is way more funny than Ubisoft published a weird floaty platformer that wasn't very good. 3D Classics Kirby's Adventure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's certainly, for an 8-bit game to see that's how they kind of limited themselves with this.
I really wish they didn't. I really wish they just kept this line going because the idea is so good.
Yeah, and you just feel like 16-bit games...
And 16 by 9.
Yeah, they would have benefited more because like the parallax scrolling and this just like you were talking about games that already had these layers and elements that were more to be brought out by stereoscopic 3D than the 8-bit. But given that limitation, Kirby's Adventure is as sort of advanced and like lavish an 8-bit game that you could choose to sort of
yes.
And it's just a very, very good entry in the series and really kind of establishes what Kirby is with the copy abilities and all that. So I think that's worth an 8.
Yeah, it's just a really good 3D conversion.
Yeah.
All right, pull blocks.
As opposed to Pushmo. Yeah?
Yes.
That was the name.
This is Pushmo. All of these. Every game in this franchise has a different name in every part of the fucking world.
Yeah, because was it Fall Blocks at some point? Was
Crashmo.
Yes.
And then there's Stretchmo, and God forbid I forget the European name for Stretchmo. What was that? That was Full Blocks.
Full Blocks.
Which, that's never going to get confused with pull blocks ever.
Yeah, so it's still, there's still, even this deep into kind of, pretty much in the kind of social media era at this point, they still haven't really realised the benefit of not bifurcating.
Yeah, of just not doing this.
But the game itself, I had this, I quite liked it. It's kind of fairly natural kind of fit with the stereoscopic 3D and some clever designs and somewhat kind of appealing presentation, so I'd give that an 8 as well.
Okay, that puts us at a 6.72, which, wow, we are back up to like 2001 levels.
Yeah, well, I guess all that stuff kind of
all the DSiWare is gone.
Yeah, all that sort of awful.
Yes. Your lowest scores were 3s for Urban Champion and Pokédex 3D, but you gave a hell of a lot of 8s and 9s.
Also, just the fact that they took these periods where they just didn't release jack shit. Like,
yes.
It helps.
Yes, we went from 67 games to 36 year to year.
Those months where it's like, no, we're not releasing anything, we don't have anything to release, and then when we do, it's Ocarina of Time and Star Fox 64. You can't rate those games lower than an 8.
Yes.
I can't anyway.
All right. 2012. Since there is no hard out, you just let me know when you need to stop.
Sure. Yeah. We may as well kind of have a few more, I think, and then we'll wrap it up. Then not too long.
The last story.
Yeah, so I did not get around to this. I did mention earlier on about Xenoblade that
Yes.
it kind of I came to Xenoblade after James had talked about it. And it did take me an awfully long time to work through it. And I know the last story is not as long as Xenoblade. As
No, it's like 20 hours.
So I could have more realistically got to that in a reasonable period of time, but
it's a weird action game.
Yeah.
Also, just setting the record straight here, because this is the first time we've talked about the last story on any of these streams, because it's the first European one, because this got brought over by Xseed in the US.
I wouldn't, so it doesn't count.
Yes, it was not Nintendo published, even though it was in everywhere else in the world. Alright, you fuckers, listen. The last story has a character named Seren with my spelling. Mine came first. This is just like Seren's stable in Breath of the Wild, which to the best of my knowledge is a dunk on me by someone who I know personally. This is a reference by someone who I know personally. This shows up a few times where they'll just throw in Seren a few different places. I know. You don't have to keep tweeting me. I know. Believe me, I know who keeps doing this bullshit. I know the two people who keep trying to slip me in everywhere. Anyways, the last story on Wii.
Wow.
One of the main characters is named Seren.
Right, yeah. So obviously, Sakaguchi, this was...
Uematsu. Yes.
And all that. It always looked quite... the sort of the artwork and all that kind of it looked interesting. It was definitely something I thought about getting around to, but again, just as nice as the experience was with Xenoblade, like the feeling of kind of like sprinting through an RPG, or it just left me a bit exhausted, and I wasn't like straight on it. And of course, it didn't really stick around, you know what I mean?
Like, no reprint, and it didn't end up on Wii U.
Exactly. So it wasn't something you could get cheap.
Pandora's Tower was on Wii U, but not Last Story. Well, maybe Last Story was in North America, but I don't think it was in Europe.
Definitely not in Europe, no. Absolutely. I have Pandora's Tower and Xenoblade on my Wii U, and I had those physically. I didn't even need it, but I definitely...
No, it was never released digitally on Wii U. Anywhere.
So I don't know whether that's just because of whatever the agreement governed the original game's release between Nintendo and Mistwalker, or what goes on there, but it just strikes me as a shame that I wasn't, that isn't more available, especially, with the way, how long it took to come out in the US.
Oh, yes.
I do kind of kick myself for not getting it. I think, like Japanese copies are not that expensive.
Right, but they don't have translations or dubs, of course.
Exactly, yeah. So that's probably you got there. Whereas because it was produced in quantities,
and it had a big online mode, and that's now, of course, completely gone.
Yeah.
Unless you do unspeakable things to try and get fake access to Nintendo WFC again, which is possible, but not on real hardware.
No. So it's in that case.
It is exactly a Metacritic of 80.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I remember it reviewing well, not making the impact that something like Xenoblade did. But obviously, it should just it exists independently of Xenoblade. It doesn't have to be kind of.
Yes, it gets thrown into the same, but
It's its own game, and obviously different developers and everything, but I think probably an 8 would be my leaning based on what I remember of it being said about it.
Mario Party 9, this time we're in a fucking car.
Yeah, the car thing. People didn't like the car thing.
People didn't like the car thing, so the last Mario Party was 07. You gave it a 5.
Yeah.
This one, people like way less. People do not like 9 and 10.
Well, I think the 10 is the asymmetric Bowser stuff, right?
Yes, but it's also car. It is both.
Well, I guess based on that, then maybe a 4
Yes.
is what's
10 is
due here.
also, here's an amiibo mode. Everyone needs an amiibo.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Fair.
how they debuted the Mario series amiibo. Um, Poke Park 2 Wonders Beyond.
Yeah, again, I mean, not
I
something.
have nothing to say on this one.
Nothing to say. Maybe I think we were with a 6 before, didn't we?
We went with, that was 2010, not 2011. We went with a 6, yes.
Yeah. So I'll stick with the 6. I mean,
Okay.
you might be able to say lower or higher based on what improvements there were, but
It's fine. It literally averages out Mario Party 9. So that neither game counts now. Because, remember, if you give a 5, the average doesn't change.
Yep.
Alright, Pandora's Tower, aka 3D Castlevania.
Yeah, I ended up liking it. I didn't get it right away, but it did become available a bit cheaper for I was in a supermarket. It's got to be one of the only times it's ever happened with me. Certainly fucking ain't going to be happening sort of down the line probably.
Oh, yes.
Everything is cheaper, somewhere else now than in a physical shop almost, unless it's some bizarre clearance scenario, I guess. But yeah, this was just that's Pandora's Tower and it's quite cheap. I'll get it. And I ended up quite liking it. It's not the most polished game in the world, but there's some elements of like repetition and stuff. But the premise is kind of interesting. There's a certain amount of almost like Majora's Mask-y kind of elements to it that I quite liked. Using the pointer is quite interesting. So yeah, it's whether to go with a 7 or an 8, and I'm genuinely really I would probably put it right in the middle of those two. So I think I'll probably go with a 7, but you could make an argument to go higher.
Okay.
I think because I did kind of it landed with me for the most part.
Yes.
But it's just something like the combat and some of the stuff is not like highly refined. So that's probably why it doesn't quite kind of get to any higher than that.
And then launching a few months after North America, but with more features, Beat the Beat Rhythm Paradise.
Yeah, so obviously, the bit weird branding here. We've still got Rhythm Paradise, but now we've got Beat the Beat in front of it.
Implying that that's the primary franchise.
Yeah, which is strange, but it's kind of like a half step. It's like, oh, well, didn't sell as well as maybe we hoped, so we'll rebrand it. But we don't want to get rid of it completely because we want people who did buy and like the DS game to know this is connected to that. So yeah, so that's odd. But what's the because I had the Japanese version, so that was that. How is it different from the North American one?
So Japan was obviously all in Japanese. The English version had English dubs for all the songs and all of the minigames, like all the voices. And Beat to Beat Rhythm Paradise, the European version, allowed you to toggle freely between Japanese and English.
Oh, that's cool.
So it did come a little bit late, but the European version legitimately is the definitive edition.
That is pretty cool. I really loved this game when I played the Japanese version.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely loved it. Really kind of still like the DS game, but this kind of brought me back to the full, like all the way in that I was with the 2006 GBA game. And just the being on the TV, it did have a kind of, and just the better graphics, the especially going back to the GBA game, which obviously very low res are kind of restricted. Just the embellishment that allowed, the further ways that it could mess with your head while you're trying to concentrate on the rhythm, really, really appealed to me. So I'd give this a 9. I think it's fantastic.
Yes. Quiz Party. No further questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look this up. I mean, if someone said to me, did Nintendo put out something called Quiz Party? I'd be like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But there you go.
Here, I'll link you to its page on Nintendo Life, which does not have a review, by the way, of this first-party Nintendo game.
There you go. Yeah, they've got Nintendo.co.uk here.
Yeah.
Let's see what they've got to say about Quiz Party.
Yeah.
Over 2,000 questions covering a wide variety.
I'm posting the link to this in the Twitch chat for people who want to see this incredible key art.
All voiced by legendary quiz show host Roy Walker, who I do know as a child as the host of Catchphrase. So, yeah.
So this is Everyone Game Entertainment SA.
Yes.
But published by Nintendo.
So strange. I guess this really...
By the way, you search Everyone Game Entertainment SA and all you get is the ESRB.
That is so bizarre. I really don't know what to make of it. I guess it's just like, look, let's put out a Wii game of some description.
Yes, like, I promise you that this is accurate. Nintendo put this out. Had I heard of this before I made this list? No. And I'm about as fucking plugged in as you can get. I had never heard of this game.
But I mean, you know, where it is just like the principal appeal, apparently, of this game is that it's got the host of Catchphrase, or probably not even the current host of maybe Catchphrase. I think it's back now. Catchphrase, but you know, at that point it would have been like a retro thing. It's just like, oh,
yeah.
Remember, you know, that guy that used to host that show? Like, it's So wow, I really don't know what to make of that. I guess maybe a 4.
But it's got Roy Walker. What more could you want?
I mean, he has got Roy Walker. That is true.
All right.
With Catchphrase, the famous sort of thing about it was that, you know, people had to guess what this sort of crude animation, what idiom it was trying to visually represent. And like they had the character, the sort of mascot character in all these animations called Mr. Chips. And you know, when the sort of bits of the animation were being revealed, and he was trying to cajole the contestants into the correct answer, he would keep saying, "What's Mr. Chips doing?" That's my main memory of Catchphrase. So someone would say, "What is Mr. Chips doing?" And,
so
it sometimes you know, there was like a sort of double entendre element to that.
Can I just really reiterate that this is July, and that 4 months later they've put out the Wii U? That this is the end of life for the Wii.
Oh yeah.
It's
pretty much the undead.
This is the third to last Wii game that Nintendo of Europe will ever publish.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. It just shows you how fast the death kind of came to Wii.
Fucking Quiz Party. All right, last 2 Wii games. Project Zero 2 Wii Edition.
Yeah, so we did Project Zero or
Fatal Frame.
Did the Fatal Frame 4 did not come.
That never left Japan ever.
Never left Japan at all.
But the remake of 2 did. It only in Europe.
And so yeah, and I think that is on like Wii U as well. You could download.
Yeah,
that.
it's just not in North America.
No,
God forbid.
No, it didn't get released originally, but I've not got round to. I kind of feel like, you know, I should give a Fatal Frame game a go because I don't mind.
Don't do that. The one that just came out. That's a port of the Wii U game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So I'm not sure. Yeah, I've always kind of like, you know, what is the correct one to try.
This one.
This would probably seem like the best choice based on the options I've got available to me.
Yes. We'll get to another Fatal Frame later this year that sure did come out in North America, and I'm gonna make a political for your consideration of a 1 out of 10 for it for you.
Oh, this is the spirit camera.
Yes.
Right? It's gotta be.
Oh yes.
So yeah, but this seems like it's, you know, kind of a pretty solid remake of a game that people like. I guess the only question is how they kind of use the Wii remote in this case.
Flashlight.
Like, yeah. So Because I seem to remember that some of the impressions I read of Fatal Frame 4 were not that enamored with how it used the Wii Remote. But
it was very waggly. I think they toned that down a lot for this one.
Yeah, so it's one of these things where it's still sort of trying. I'm kind of surprised I didn't get around.
Yeah, so if you have a Wii U hooked up, there are truly only 2 Fatal Frame games that you can play right now, which is Maiden of Blackwater, either on Wii U or on Switch, Xbox, PS4, and that game is very bad. Or you could digitally buy the Wii remake of the PS2 game.
Yes.
Those are the only ways that you can experience this franchise right now.
Strange, isn't it? Yeah.
That's it. If you don't have a Wii U hooked up, it's only Maiden of Blackwater.
It's pretty odd, but I mean, especially like Nintendo own a piece of this at this point.
Yes, they. Well, I don't know if they still do. They had They basically acquired operational percentage of the Fatal Frame IP. No fucking idea how Maiden of Blackwater ended up on other platforms. Presumably the same way Wonderful 101 did. But that doesn't tell me if did Nintendo receive a cut of the Xbox version sales?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Or did they just say, you know what, we'll just relinquish it for this?
We still have Fatal Frame, but this game specifically, y'all are on your own. We don't want to put a penny in.
You want to do it, so be it.
That's maybe how I would assume it came to be, is that they still have Fatal Frame, but Maiden of Blackwater sold so well and was received so poorly that they were like, we are not putting a damn penny on this. It'll be a Devil's Third Online situation. Do it on your own.
I think maybe an 8 for that.
Okay.
It seems it seems pretty interesting.
And then the last Wii game, Inazuma 11 Strikers.
Yeah, that spin-off I mentioned earlier on. It kind of seemed somewhat interesting, but I don't know whether it's sort of. I do like your kind of arcade-style sports and arcade-style soccer in particular. I played a fair bit of that, so it had some interest, but didn't get around to it in the end. And I mean, I think there were a number of these games that Strikers is specifically in Japan, right? Like this was a sort of
this was a big franchise. Yes.
Yeah, the franchise in general, and then even this.
Yes, Strikers was numerous.
So I just, based on what I can remember of how it reviewed, because I said I did follow it a little bit. I didn't seem to land as well as a Mario Strikers or some of the other kind of things. So I think maybe a 5 for that.
Okay. Wii U time. They released 2 games in Europe.
Yeah.
Because this was a December launch for Europe.
It was a little bit later. Then for me, I think it was a tiny. It wasn't much of a lag, but I definitely didn't have it at launch. It may have been a matter of a couple of weeks. Or
there are Nintendo launched 4 launch titles in the Americas. There was also Ninja Gaiden and Sing Party. Those are 2013 games in Europe.
Yeah.
In Europe, they only launched with Nintendo Land, which is the pack-in for about 70% of the Wii U's at launch, and then New Super Mario Bros. U.
Yeah, the sort of the black model and then the white model, which just didn't really
There was no. It again. They do this from time to time. Starting at $2.99 was the whole reason that one existed.
Just so you could, technically state that fact without ever actually wanting people to avail themselves.
No, it came with a game that was $50 on its own. It came with plastic stands. It came with a rebate program. And it came with 3 times as much hard drive space?
Yeah.
No, 4 times. A16, 24, 30. 4 times.
Yeah, that's right. That was the biggest thing. It's just that crappy. Because, the... especially, when it was updated and everything.
The operating system was 5 gigs.
It took most of that up. It's just
so you had 3 left. Honestly, I do have the quote-unquote basic bundle... by Japanese Wii U, because I just knew I was going to throw an external on that. And the only reason I got the external, or the Japanese Wii U, was I was reading the tea leaves with some conversations with Nintendo of America employees about Xenoblade Chronicles X is going to have like an 8-month gap. And I was like, no. That was it. That was, no, that's the line in the sand.
I mean, I don't know if it was the first time you were on RFM, but that's where I remember hearing you the first time, is you talking about Xenoblade early, right?
Yes. I definitely talked about that. Like, there were a couple times during the Wii U era. I know I started coming onto RFN, I think, in 2013. But, yeah, that and Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE are, like, the two games that I really got on the Japanese eShop. And I think I got the Kirby Canvas Curse sequel on the Japanese Wii U eShop because it was cheaper than the North American retail price. Because I think it was like 4,500 yen in Japan and $60 in the US. Because they could pull that bullshit when everything was region locked.
Yeah, that's true. It was. That's the thing. Everything was region locked. I mean, I never had a Japanese Wii U the way I had a Japanese Wii.
Yeah.
But I do remember looking through like some of the virtual console things.
Oh yeah.
I think they had didn't they have like Sonic Advance games?
Yes, they sure did.
Virtual console, which never came. Even the GBA in general.
They had Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6 on the GBA Virtual Console.
Yeah, so, I mean the GBA selection was pretty good anyway, but it was even better.
Yeah, no, they actually cared about that. Rip to the Japanese Wii U eShop in 2 weeks. All right, New Super Mario Brothers U.
So I mean, this is my favorite of the new Super Mario Brothers games.
It's very good.
I think it's really quite good. I don't know whether I'd quite go to a 9. I think mainly because we have seen new Super Mario Brothers a couple of times,
including including 2 months before or 3 months before.
Yeah, even though that one, the one that came before this, New Super Mario Brothers 2, was the one that was getting like pulled up in pulled forward in time, seemingly. Like,
yes.
That was the one that kind of shouldn't have been there, and then it probably ends up kind of blunting the impact of this. But it is, for me, the best one in terms of the way it kind of incorporates the shortcuts and the overworld and the alternate exits.
And the level design is just really good.
Yeah, I think the level design is really strong. It doesn't have, like, in terms of scenario or aesthetic, it's still like just firmly in the predictable new Super Mario Brothers territory. You have some flourishes, like the Starry Night. Is it Starry Night?
The one stage, yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's some there, but I guess I think new Super Mario Brothers Wii was an 8 as well. And I do like it better than that, so it's a little bit awkward, but I don't feel like...
But it's also the 4th and not the 2nd.
Yeah, exactly. It does balance out to be an 8, even though it is, the choice of the game. And
what about Nintendo Land, since you're so fond of local multiplayer?
Yeah, this is a tough one to balance. I did end up playing, a fair bit of Nintendo Land with a friend, back then. So it was, something that I was at least able to get a fair bit out of, even though it wasn't like ideal circumstances where it's going to be, 4 people and really get something more out of all the games. But there were some things that were quite enjoyable. Some stuff that was a bit more throwaway, like the F-Zero thing felt kind of throwaway. I guess it's, especially in retrospect, it's nice that F-Zero's existence was acknowledged, but the actual Twister race or whatever,
it's
kind of, there wasn't that. But some of the other things had more sort of depth there, like I think the Zelda adventure, and some of the obviously you had some that were just a riff on the same thing, like the Animal Crossing and Mario kind of tag kind of games and stuff like that. But Pikmin was probably the most like robust thing that I can recall.
That and Zelda.
that was actually quite a nice, and especially
Yes.
because Pikmin had been, as a new game, had been MIA for quite a while at this point. It was kind of nice to see
like 7
Pikmin
years
represented, and that was done quite well. So yeah, it's tough to some of the things felt a bit more like the Yoshi thing. Like, what was that? I don't entirely remember. It was
that
quite
was you are, I think you're looking at the TV and it shows you where things are and has like your destination and hazards, and you look at the gamepad and you draw a line but you don't see those, and so you're trying to like look back and forth and make sure that your spatial reasoning is right.
Kind of layer on top of it,
yes.
and then so yeah, I mean that was it was kind of thin, and I mean I guess the DK thing was okay, like that.
It was very hard but very good.
Yeah, I quite like that. So it's tough to balance out all these kind of stuff, especially because it was one of those things where you played it quite a lot.
Oh, you mean the Game and Watch Octopus dancing minigame? That wasn't your favorite?
I mean, I think there was the thing that was randomly like the Nazo no Murasama Joe.
Oh yes,
like that was such a wide like.
That was just because they fucking needed something to put the shuriken thing from their 2011 sizzle.
Yeah, they'd already made a ninja theme thing, and then it's like, oh well, we did make a game, like of that sort of thing.
Will anyone notice that no one in the world knows what the fuck we're referencing here? Nah.
Yeah, so that was, it was kind of cute because I was aware of, I played that on the virtual console on the Japanese Wii and stuff, but yeah, it's tough to balance all those things out. But I think I'd go with a 6 overall. It was definitely at its best, it's like stuff that was like really quite fun with another person, and just a different kind of fun than necessarily you would get from other games. But then on the downside, you're talking about stuff that was just kind of thin and didn't really work. So
real quick, just because we're finally at the games with New Super Mario Bros. U, games that received DLC are starting to come out this year. As a heads up, the way that I have incorporated that into the ratings is if a game's DLC was ever sold completely standalone, we're rating it completely separately. So, i.e., New Super Luigi U should not be in consideration for Mario U, even though that was DLC, or Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country should not be considered in consideration when talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That'll be treated as its own game. Whereas when we get to like New Super Mario Bros. 2, those DLC courses should be considered.
Yeah, because it's not anything that was ever going to be able to stand alone. That makes sense.
So that is where the DLC split is that when Nintendo thinks a piece of DLC is so big that it needs to get sold off on its own, we'll talk about it there. But for the most part, DLC incorporated into the generalized conversation about whether the DLC is good or bad. We'll talk about it with regards to the actual game. Anyways, onto the Pokemon DS. We got Pokemon, and Pokemon. Pokemon Conquest. Did you ever play this, Greg?
I didn't. I thought about it. It sounded interesting.
This is a must-play. This game is so interesting.
It's just such a the intersection of kind of Japanese period.
Yes, Nobunaga's ambition.
Koei.
But what if all of the fucking historical and fictional figures of this time had partner Pokemon?
I definitely just the kind of the gumption, I guess, to marry these things together.
I love it. What would Nobunaga have? Obviously, he'd have a Zekrom.
But equally, it reviewed well.
It's very good.
It wasn't just like, oh, that's such a zany premise. Isn't that funny? It seemingly was actually substantially quite good. My initial impulse on this is an 8, but I welcome any more sort of detailed input also.
All right. No, I mean you're right. It's really really good. The strategy is really good. The premise is hilarious. The writing knows exactly what it is. The writing knows this is fucking weird. Yeah, no, this is one of those games that made me wish that there was a better way to acquire old DS games than... Because here's the thing. Guess. So Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, you know, I know that's a little bit like a game away. They came out 9 years ago. Ballpark me. And these are Pokemon DS games. The DS and Pokemon went hand in hand. They made tens and tens of millions of each of these.
Many games. Yeah.
How much money do you think you have to spend for a copy of Pokemon White 2?
Oh, I don't know about Black and White or Black and White 2. I heard some absurd number quoted for Soul Silver.
Soul Silver, you're looking at like $250.
It's baffling to me. So I dare even like.
White 2 is like $175, $150.
That's crazy. Like,
for a game from 9 years. For a game that they made tens of millions of from 9 years ago. So
it's not like Ninja Cop, is it? Or Ninja 5.0?
No.
Like,
so here's the thing: is you're like, for a lot of people, like let's say if you're in your 30s, like you're in college and you're like, oh, I want to go pick up the games that are useful, like are like meaningful to me as a kid that like maybe I traded away or I rented from Blockbuster. You go to a fucking flea market and you drop $5 on an NES cartridge.
Yeah.
If you are like now in college, these are the games that are meaningful to you as your kid. When you're a kid, is the Pokemon DS games. Get fucked.
You didn't have them.
If you got rid of them ever,
fabulously wealthy.
Yes, if you got rid of them ever, no. You could buy a Switch for the same amount of money as a copy of Heart Gold Soul Silver.
It is remarkable.
So, like...
But it also just emphasizes again that, like, Nintendo should start capitalizing on their portable library.
On the 3DS, why didn't they fucking figure out some way? I mean, they did with some games, like, Advance Wars Days of Ruin only came out to Japan through Club Nintendo as a 3DS download game.
And WarioWare Touch as a Club Nintendo thing,
yes.
Or whatever it was called at that point.
Yes, they did some stuff like this. But, like, by and large, like, you couldn't have figured out how to sell fucking Pokemon Platinum for $40 on the eShop?
No, it's strange, because obviously with Wii and Wii U, they did get to that point.
Yes.
You know, but... because it's same fundamentally in terms of, you know, a Wii U could take a physical Wii disc, a 3DS could take a physical DS cartridge, and both would work. So then
exactly. Just
extending that principle.
Sell it for $40. Like, I sell it for more than it sold for originally. Like, these games sold for $35, sell them for $40. People, you are leaving money on the fucking table. You want to know why Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are selling so well at $60? Part of it might be, it is fucking, even if you have the DS and a Switch, it is cheaper to buy so much, to buy both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for $120 than to buy one DS copy of it.
That's terrifying, isn't it? But, I mean,
what
can you say to that?
Like, fuck these, like, the second, because, again, you want to know why prices have skyrocketed? One, the DS game, like, the Pokemon DS games have very specific, usually, like, IR, or, like, local ad hoc multiplayer functionality in the cartridges themselves that are not replicable on flash carts.
Right.
So it's really hard to emulate them perfectly. And then two, so many fucking people are making... Like, if you think that you're getting a steal and able to buy a copy for like $50 on eBay, it is a fucking forgery. You are getting played.
Yeah.
There are so many forgeries.
It's a rich tradition of that GBA. There
yes.
Loads of bootlegs out there.
Yes.
For that.
There are so many bootleg Pokemon games on GBA and DS that you're fucked and they will just not work right. And sorry, but yeah, that's just where it is. Anyway, speaking of dumbass Pokemon games, this one though, you were talking about in like 2010, 2011 with the first Poke Park game. You were talking about like Pokemon games that like really hold their value because they're Pokemon. Let's talk about one that tanks because no retailer wants to keep this on shelves. Learn with Pokemon Typing Adventure.
This did get cheap. Like, I do remember that.
Because it has an entire fucking keyboard!
It does happen. Like,
it has a Bluetooth keyboard attached.
It's wild, yeah. I seem to remember some people sort of quite like this.
It did not come out in the US because no one wanted it. No retailer.
I think I can understand, why it's just, more trouble than it's worth from a, shelf stocking kind of thing and all that. But in terms of the game, I think some people sort of that did actually, get to play with it, sort of quite liked what it did with the concept. Obviously, it's not really generally aimed at the.
Oh yes, it is teaching you how to type. It is like I was strongly considering. I did not end up doing it. I was strongly considering importing a Japanese copy, literally so that I could get better practice at typing in Japanese.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of a useful case. Because the problem is, of course, most people who are going to offer impressions of it or whatever on the internet, I mean, it's not for them.
They know how to type in their native language, yes.
By definition, with you're reading the proof that they.
Yes, whereas like for me, there might have actually been an interesting case. I think it was just like importing this huge ass package from Japan at the time was just gonna be more money than it was worth.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's like, well, even if it's like the face value of it makes sense.
Yeah.
Shipping, it's not going to be so much. So, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of leaning towards, obviously, having not played it, and it wouldn't be for me anyway, and all that. It's hard, but I'd lean towards a 6 on this.
Its novel is weird.
But yeah, such a weird thing.
All right. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, the last pre-3D Pokemon games.
Yeah, so it's...
How much do you know about these? Because these ones are fucking weird.
Again, having not kind of got, it's kind of with the first Black and White, it was like, okay, Soul Silver wasn't that long ago. I was really happy with that. And with these, it's like, oh, well, I'll probably wait until they're on 3DS now, even though I kind of...
Oh, you mean Pokemon games, not these ones specifically?
Yeah. The next generation that will fully utilize the 3DS.
Yeah, X and Y sucked, though, so sorry about that.
Yeah, well, it was... Yeah, and I never got X or Y, because it did seem like they were a bit tepidly received.
Yeah, they are not good games.
At the time, you're just thinking, well, we'll wait and see how they do anyway. So, yeah, I did pass these. My recollection, though, is that obviously, first of all, this is where they split up the third version, what we used to call the third version.
Yes.
Now it's 2 versions of the...
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Also, what I remember, seemingly, is that in some ways... people seem to be quite positive on like, that this was a bit more than previous, like, third versions.
Yes.
In cases, but I don't remember the specifics of that.
So, first of all, the story is literally a 2 years later continuation.
So the sequel element is kind of earned.
Yes, it really is a 2. It is like the first Pokemon game that is legitimately... Well, I guess Gold and Silver were kind of a direct sequel to Red and Blue. Yeah. But like it is legitimately a sequel to Black and White. It takes place in the same region. You explore different parts of the region in different order. Different characters. The gym leaders are usually different. Which also answers a lot of weird lore about like... If you're a gym leader, do you just sit in this room until you die? Like, what the fuck happens to these characters after my adventure? What the hell is the concept of champion if my last protagonist beat the champion? Like, it, like, weirdly gives clarity to, like, showing you what the world looks like after your Pokemon adventure. But it's also just, like... So, it's interesting... I think the biggest thing for this is, remember when we started talking about Emerald and Platinum, that the third versions usually, like they would make tweaks to the story, and the biggest thing they would do is add an enormous post-game?
Yeah, the Battle Frontier.
Yeah, like that kind of shit. This adds the most post-game. This lets you fight every gym leader in series history, I believe.
Wow.
Like, this lets you... Like, this is their all-out, we know this is our last. Fuck it. We're all in on this. Like, it is so weird. Like, this is... Yeah, like, it's a full sequel. Like, they haven't... The only third version that they... Or quote-unquote third version type thing that they've done since this is Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
Yeah.
And even then, like, that's just a remix of the original. This being direct sequel, which they've never done before or since. This being, like...
They never even did, like, anything for X and Y, right?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
There was no Z, there was no...
Absolutely. There was a third legendary whose name started with Z.
Zekrom, right?
Or no, that was Zygarde.
Oh, Zygarde. Sorry.
Yes.
You mentioned Zekrom earlier
yes.
on Conquest.
Yes, Zekrom is from Black.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
Also, here's a fucking weird thing. The legendary of Black 2, White 2, because they're like, well, we can't just recycle the legendaries, but we're in the same region. We have the same Pokedex. What are we going to do? It fucking introduces the concept of Pokemon fusion. Alright. Yes, so we have Kyurem, who's in the original Black and White, and we have him as like the main legendary in Black 2, White 2, but then there's also Kyurem like Blue and Kyurem Red, or like it's basically fusing with the legendaries from Black and White that give it different typings and like a different visual and different moves, and it's fucking weird. And they went so weird with this one, but like these are significantly better games. Also, in terms of version exclusives, here's the weirdest shit ever. So if I have Black 2 and you have White 2 and we're local to each other, when I get to Black City, my exclusive city, that you don't have in your game, I get a key that's like, here's the Black City key, and we can exchange, I can give you that key, and then in your White game, you can enter the Black exclusive city. And using that system, get this, you can unlock easy mode and hard mode, because these are the only Pokemon games that have difficulty selections.
That's interesting. That's based on. So again, I mean, obviously they've sort of always pretty woven into the idea of the different versions.
Yes.
You get a pair of people to have them and trade the exclusive Pokemon and so. But yeah,
now you're trading exclusive features.
Yeah, that's the difficulties. I mean, that's so great.
So if I beat Black 2, I can trade anyone either in Black or White 2 the option to start their game with hard mode. If someone beats White 2, they can transfer easy mode. Yeah.
That is strange. I wonder if they ever considered other things that it might unlock.
There are other keys, like you can exchange the options to get different secondary legendaries. You can exchange like the primary city, and then you can exchange difficulties are like the big things. And like it is very, very weird, and it is frustrating to me, like the one time they fucked around and with difficulty options, the thing that people have legitimately still been asking for in like every Pokemon game, that the one time they did it, it was locked behind you have to have either another DS and copy of the game or know someone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of speaks to a reluctance somewhere, doesn't it? It's like,
yes.
Presumably the people who were in favour of including it sort of managed to cajole the people who are not.
Yes, it's like, well, we can make it a version multiplayer thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, it won't just be there. Like, you'll have to. It's like this inducement, or locked behind.
You have to go really out of your way to get it, but it's there.
Yeah, so it must be like a different like
Yeah.
factions within
But
Game
like,
Freak on that
but it's
subject.
also like a really well developed hard mode. Like easy mode is just like I think like levels are lower and like um you gain it exp faster. But on hard mode, everyone like different Pokemon show up different places. Different trainers have different Pokemon. Different Pokemon have different moves. Like everyone's higher level. Like it's like an actually well thought out hard mode.
Yeah, well, that's you wonder if they kind of developed that and then it got locked behind that.
Yeah,
and
I
how much that
feel
must
like
have
that's.
hurt some people.
I feel like
Put a lot of
hard mode.
effort into this.
I feel like hard mode came before the communication feature for sure.
Yeah, and then it's like, yeah, your work is now locked behind this, that, and the other. That
But
so
yes,
many people
so
actually see.
when I say that Black 2 and White 2 are ambitious and weird, that like I really do mean it. Like what like, and also like Top Hat Ant was like first mainline game I chose to skip. These are I think the worst selling mainline games.
I guess it's tough because it's
It's also a year after the 3DS.
It's the timing relative to everything else that's going on in Nintendo world,
Yes.
because it does as much. Pokemon obviously is enormously popular on its own back, but it's not entirely divorced from everything else that's going on with Nintendo, of course. And then I don't know whether the whole like splitting the second kind of version or your third version,
Yes.
made it kind of made people feel like more cynically towards it, even though it sounds like they kind of actually took that somewhat seriously in terms
Yes.
of like, okay, well,
I feel like they justified it, but it reads as a cash grab.
yeah, exactly. So it's and of course just also the fact that DS sales in general, DS software sales were in a pretty tough place, even like probably by the time the original Black and White was coming out, let alone by this point.
Like so. This game, we'll get to it, but there's a 3DS eShop game that came out this year called Pokemon Dream Radar, which is basically just face raiders, but for Pokemon. But like you can get legendary like forms of legendary Pokemon that are exclusive to that, and use the 3DS app to transfer it down to the DS game because the DS game was made with the 3DS in mind. Because that's the era we're in.
So it's just kind of a victim of this awkward transition.
Yes, it's very middle, like halfway step to 3DS game, but it's still a DS game. It runs on DS, enhanced on DSi, further enhanced on 3DS.
It's funny, I get it because obviously it's been all over the place since with this. Like you said, we didn't have the third version for X and Y. Okay, you do have Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And then of course with
Sword and Shield, it's DLC.
You're getting into the DLC era, so yeah, it's a really it's quite a unique.
Yes, like I don't think they're ever gonna do another two.
Yeah.
But like as like the one time they did it, they really did kind of try and put their best foot forward.
It's kind of a shame in a way because obviously it happens with Final Fantasy.
Yes.
Just like when like a particular installment sort of merits
7 and 10, yeah.
I say merits, but
yes.
whatever reason it goes into it, it's just like no, well let's just continue that story. Like it's it kind of feels like something that could make sense, or that certainly some fans would like be happy to see, like with a particular generation. But yeah, it's hard to imagine it happening again. So. Yeah, tough to say really what to score this. I mean, I think we were at an 8 for.
Yeah, you gave it 8 for Black and White, which was like, hey, it's more technically ambitious. It's a bunch of new Pokemon, new region. It's got an interesting story, and this is same Pokemon, same region, new story, and a bunch of wild shit tacked on.
Yeah, so it's I think. I all the sort of what's been mentioned is sort of consistent with my vague memories of like how people like reacted to it, but the details was not familiar with.
Yes.
In terms of just how sort of much scope and the way in which it furthered the first games went. So it's I think it's whether it's an 8 or a 9 on this one, and I'm not. It's tough. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think either one is valid for different reasons.
I think I'd probably just be could have not having played it, probably be conservative and go with an 8. But
Okay.
it does sound interesting. It's kind of a little bit of a shame that
you can't play these games.
These ones pass me by, and there isn't a neat way to kind of go back to it. But
I mean, there's emulation, and that's the only way that these games are accessible, other than paying hundreds of dollars.
It's crazy, really, isn't it? But to get, I mean, it took a long time. It took a long. Obviously, we're in the period where the 3DS eShop has just started, and the Virtual Console has started for Game Boy games. But look how long it took to get to Pokemon Virtual Console.
It took.
It came years later, and they had the link cable.
Yeah, because it had special features, and it connected to Pokemon Bank, and
Yeah, there was reasons for it, but it's just it has always been just getting because they make so profitable to do remakes. And stuff, but getting just like straight up re-releases of Pokemon has always been like getting blood from a stone.
Yes. Also, Black, White, or Black 2, White 2, one of the 4 games, is essential to make the journey of GBA to Switch. Because those are the only 4 games that will, I believe, connect directly to Pokemon Bank.
I see. So that will crank up the value, presumably.
Yeah.
For legit.
And you need Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum to be able to go GBA to DS. Heart Gold, Soul Silver can communicate in both directions, but can't do imports between console generations. Whereas you need one of the first DS games to receive from GBA, and you need one of the last DS games to send from DS.
It's
a clusterfuck.
It's a lot, but
there is a chart. You can make a chart of how do you get from original Pokemon Ruby all the way to Sword and Shield, and you can do it. It's just very clumsy. And then currently there's no way to get to Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl because even though that game was made by the company that makes Pokemon Home does not support it yet. That will happen in 2022.
Nice.
Inazuma 11-2, Firestorm and Blizzard.
Yeah, so what do we go on the first one with?
You gave it a 7. And here's our first 2 versions.
Oh, yes.
Because this is what Level 5 does, is they put out a first game and test the waters. And then they jump on multiple versions for a sequel, like Inazuma 11 and Yokai Watch.
Yeah, so it's... I was following this series a little bit, even though I didn't actually get any. Although I believe I do have downloaded on my Japanese 2DS, get one of these games that they just gave away for free at some point on the eShop. But obviously it's completely unplayable. There was no point in me downloading. I just did it for the hell of it. But
there is a $15 3DS remake of Inazuma 11-1.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but from what I can recall of following it, I don't think it was like a quantum leap or anything over the first game. It was just like you said, kind of very much they dip their toes in and then they very rapidly roll it out. And indeed with multiple versions, like Yokai Watch, you had the multiple versions for sequels and stuff. So I think stick with the 7 on that. It just seems like probably. I don't think it's either big enough and swing in either direction to change.
That's fair. Do you want to push on to 3DS, or do you want to call it here, or do you want to go 15?
Probably have to call it there. But,
okay.
It's good progress through.
Yes, definitely.
The dark night of DSi.
2.5 years covered. Will we pick up? Will that be on Thursday the 6th?
I would assume there's nothing to prevent that next week.
Yes. Thursday the 6th, we will pick up with Resident Evil Revelations.
Oh, yes.
And
specifically Revelations.
Yes, and then we will immediately go into Kid Icarus Uprising.
Yeah, interesting year for 3DS with the, some of the stuff that was always going to be kind of coming on stream, and then other things that were quite clearly just brought forward due to mad panic to save the system. So it's
Yes.
quite sort of condensed in that way.
Yes, no, I'm looking forward to the kind of back-to-back of their holiday lineup of New Super Mario Bros. 2, Miracle Mask, Nintendo presents New Style Boutique, and then Sticker Star as their big holiday lineup game. Uh-oh. Gregus, you there? Well, I think that's ominous, so we're going to call it from there. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.